Chapter 67. There was no need to mention the alchemy skills of Immortal Eclipse Valley's cultivators. As for those that were sent to manage the Grand Alchemy Meeting's grading process, they were all outstanding individuals and their appraisal speed was extremely fast. In a short period of time, the dozen or so people in front of Qin Yu had all completed their appraisals. Not a single one of them wasn't accurate. The skill of Immortal Eclipse Valley's alchemists was once again displayed in front of everyone, drawing countless looks of worship. The last one. The alchemists of Immortal Eclipse Valley were a bit dispirited. They didn't understand why the lords of the valley were holding this grand alchemy meeting. With the alchemy skills of these people outside, how could they call themselves alchemists? It was simply tarnishing this noble title. Zhao Wu's eyes swept over him. He was a 4th-level Foundation Establishment cultivator. The last shred of anticipation in his heart also disappeared. He lightly said, "What pill did you refine?" Qin Yu cupped his hands together. Foundation Establishment Realm Blood Clotting Pill, Detoxification Pill, Minor Renewal Pill. Zhao Wu was slightly surprised. He had appraised dozens of people, but this was the first time he had encountered a minor revitalizing pill. However, these 3 pills weren't too difficult, so he didn't care too much about them. He took the jade bottle and poured out the 3 pills one by one. He looked at them and then lowered his head to smell them. His brows furrowed. The blood-clotting pill and detoxification pill were of acceptable quality, but the minor reversion pill was barely satisfactory. In Immortal Eclipse Valley, this sort of pill was considered a waste pill. But this Grand Alchemy Meeting was extremely important. If it was considered a waste pill, then that was the same as being kicked down to the 2nd stage. Eclipse Wu hesitated for a moment and then said, "Blood clotting pill, medium detoxification pill, low minor renewal pill." Even if it was a lower level, it was still a pass. The disciples of Immortal Eclipse Valley recorded their results, and this record would appear in front of Eclipse Axian and Daoist Wang at the same time. Qin Yu cupped his hands together in thanks. He received the qualifications to participate in the 3rd level and turned to leave. But before he could take more than a few steps, Daoist Wang leapt up and roared, "Who refined the small renewal pill? Hurry up and bring it over." Zhao Wu was a loyal fan of Daoist Wang and had always held a great deal of respect towards this external alchemist. When he heard this, his heart skipped a beat. He thought that something was wrong and quickly pointed a finger. "Stop him!" Whoosh whoosh, several Immortal Eclipse Valley cultivators surrounded Qin Yu. In the crowd, Qi Jiao cried out. Her hands were tightly twisted together. Senior Apprentice Sister, what happened to him?" Senior Apprentice Sister comforted her, "Don't worry, it might be a misunderstanding." But even she didn't believe her own words. Qin Yu was on guard, but he revealed a blank expression. "What is it?" Zhao Wu waved his hand. "Bring him over." But before the Immortal Eclipse Valley cultivators could do anything, Daoist Wang impatiently rushed over. He looked Qin Yu up and down. "Were you the one who refined the minor renewal pill? The peak of the Jindan realm?" Qin Yu's heart chilled. He cupped his hands together and said, "It is this junior." Daoist Wang's complexion was strange. He muttered a few words to himself, seeming a bit disappointed. He turned and scolded, "Who appraised the pill? You can't even see the obvious problem of private use materials. Useless." Zhao Wu had an embarrassed look on his face. "Reporting to Martial Uncle Wang, I was the one who appraised this person's pill, but this disciple really couldn't see anything wrong with it." Daoist Wang loudly cursed. Trash, just what cultivation does this brat have? How could he possibly refine a small revitalizing pill? If you can't even see this, then go back to your cave dwelling and never come out again. How shameful. Zhao Wu wanted to cry. For better or worse, he could be considered one of the more famous juniors of Immortal Eclipse Valley. When had he ever been scolded in public like this? And the one scolding him was Daoist Wang, so he didn't dare to say anything else. Eclipse Axion frowned. He coldly said, "Enough. Just who do you think you are to act like this in public? Aren't you afraid of losing face?" He coldly glared at Qin Yu and waved his hand. "Drag him away and severely punish him for cheating." Whoosh, the crowd burst into an uproar. They immediately revealed looks of disdain. Yesterday it was already clear that Immortal Eclipse Valley had a method to appraise alchemy materials, and yet they still dared to commit such a crime. They simply didn't know what death was. TSK, Immortal Eclipse Valley's punishment was truly terrifying. It was said that this person was carried away yesterday. Qi Jiao paled. "Senior apprentice sister, what do we do?" The senior apprentice sister bitterly smiled. At this time, what could they do? This Qin Yu, how could he do something so stupid? Qin Yu looked at the approaching Immortal Eclipse Valley disciple and frowned. "Senior, you haven't seen me refine a pill yet you think I cheated and used private materials. Don't you think this is too excessive?" Daoist Wang didn't have any expression. "My face is the best evidence. Are you not convinced?" Qin Yu nodded. "Yes." Daoist Wang was so angry that he began to laugh. Eclipse Axion coldly said, "Bring out the pill that this person refined. My Immortal Eclipse Valley has always done things in an open and above-board manner. You will naturally be convinced." Eclipse Wu ran over. "Great Uncle, Martial Uncle Wang, the pill is here." Daoist Wang looked up at the skies, disdain in his eyes. Helplessness flashed in Eclipse Axion's eyes. He took the jade bottle and poured out the pill. But soon, his face stiffened. With Eclipse Axion's cultivation and eyesight, it was easy for him to identify pills. The blood-clotting pill and detoxification pill were quite standard, and the minor renewal pill was a bit worse, but it was still barely a pill. After a moment of silence, his face darkened. "Daoist Wang, tell me, what is wrong with this pill?" Eclipse Wu really wanted to cry. Great Uncle also couldn't see through this. Finally, he could clear his name. Daoist Wang coldly sneered. "Such a simple matter and yet you can't even sense it. Eclipse Axion, has your brain turned into stone after all these years?" He angrily grabbed the pill. "Look at this small renewal pill, how could the material be mine?" His words came to an abrupt halt. Daoist Wang's eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. He mumbled, "How is this possible? How is this possible?" The Immortal Eclipse Valley disciples all paled. They coughed several times and drew back. Eclipse Axion's face was so gloomy that it seemed as if water could drip down from it. In the eyes of everyone, when had Immortal Eclipse Valley ever lost face like this? If he couldn't salvage the situation, he promised that he would let Daoist Wang experience the methods of the discipline courtyard. Daoist Wang leapt up, his face filled with excitement. He grabbed Qin Yu and said, "Brat, tell me, how did you refine the minor renewal pill?" The rank of the minor renewal pill wasn't high, it was a consumable pill for the Foundation establishment realm. The crowd glanced at each other in dismay. They had no idea what was wrong with this great figure of Immortal Eclipse Valley that he would be so excited. Love go little say Netku, could it be that he was trying to find a way out of this embarrassing situation? "Please, don't insult the intelligence of passers-by." Qin Yu struggled but was still held tightly. He could only say, "This junior used 3 green branch buds. One of them was damaged and deteriorated and the other 2 weren't mature enough to be used as medicine. But my luck was extremely poor and the materials I chose could only be used to refine the blood-stopping pill, the poison detoxification pill, and the minor renewal pill." I had no other choice, so I could only brace myself and take a portion of the damaged green branch buds that hadn't completely deteriorated. I smelted them together with the 2 green branch buds that weren't mature enough to barely refine this minor renewal pill. Daoist Wang's face flushed red. His eyes shined as if he had seen a treasure. He laughed and said, "Brat, from now on you are my disciple. I guarantee that I will teach you everything I know and make you an alchemy grandmaster of your generation." At this time, not only did the crowd cry out in alarm, but the eyes of the Immortal Eclipse Valley disciples also turned red. But the key question was, why? Eclipse Axian revealed a gratified expression. "Congratulations, Brother Wang. However, you still owe them an explanation." Daoist Wang glanced at the several people that were led away from Alchemy Mountain. He sneered, "My disciple has already given an explanation. The materials you chose were carefully prepared by me. After refining the essence-augmenting pill, the remaining materials can only be used to refine the blood-stopping pill, poison detoxification pill, and minor renewal pill. You each had 3 green branch buds, but 2 of them were damaged and their medicinal efficacy wasn't enough. My disciple was only at the 4th level of foundation establishment and was able to refine them, so what else do you have to say?" Zhang Yuqing had an ugly expression. He clenched his teeth and flicked his sleeves as he left. The others also slipped away, their tails between their legs. Daoist Wang turned his head, his old face instantly turning into a blooming chrysanthemum. "Good disciple, hurry and follow your master." Qin Yu revealed an awkward expression. Eclipse Axian frowned. "What, you don't want to?" Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "It's not that I don't want to, but I already have a master. I don't dare to join another sect." Daoist Wang was stunned. He never imagined that the disciple he had searched so hard for would have already been taken away by someone else. He couldn't help but be enraged. Pfft! Which bastard is so wicked as to do this ahead of time? This is simply going too far. The onlookers, Immortal Eclipse Valley disciples, and Eclipse Axian all had dark lines on their foreheads. Qin Yu's words were even more unreasonable. Daoist Wang restrained his anger. "What is your name?" "Junior is Qin Yu." "Good. Qin Yu, listen up. The Tao of alchemy is as deep and profound as the sea. A good teacher is like a tiger that has grown wings. Although I am not an elder in Immortal Eclipse Valley, if I wanted to, I could immediately become one of the top 10 elders. The resources that come with this status can be used to train you. As for my own alchemy skills, no matter who your teacher is, it is impossible for them to compare with me. You should carefully consider whether or not you want to take me as your master." Everyone looked at Qin Yu, clear envy and jealousy in their eyes. What was there to think about? Hurry up and agree. The several Immortal Eclipse Valley disciples that had been eagerly serving Qin Yu were left speechless. 2 streams of tears flowed down their cheeks. Qin Yu was silent for a long time. He cupped his hands together and said, "I thank Senior for your kindness, but this junior does not dare to accept it." Whoosh, he had refused. He had refused. If looks could kill, then Qin Yu would definitely be tortured to 1,000 cuts by the Immortal Eclipse Valley disciples. They glared at Qin Yu and straightened their backs. "Martial Uncle Wang, look at me, look at me, look at me, your disciple is here. As long as you nod your head, I will immediately pay my respects to you." As for this bastard that didn't know what was good for him, he had best scram as far away as he could, otherwise he would never forget the anger he had towards the disciples of Immortal Eclipse Valley. Daoist Wang coughed and brought out a great killing weapon. "Qin Yu, as long as you take me as your master, you will no longer need to participate in the following tests. There will also be a spot for you to cultivate under the radiant redwood." Qin Yu's heart was instantly moved. But if he agreed, then he could be exposed at any moment. Seeing him remain silent, Eclipse Axion said in a low voice, "There is no need for you to doubt this. With my status as an elder, I guarantee that this promise is valid." The other alchemists that had passed the second round and were about to take the final test all cursed and slandered Daoist Wang in their hearts. But they didn't dare to reveal anything on their faces. The Radiant Red would belong to Immortal Eclipse Valley to begin with. Since they had only taken one spot, and that spot was given to a junior disciple that they favored, what right did they have to complain about? Moreover, everyone could see that Daoist Wang was extremely irritated. If he really jumped out, he would definitely die an ugly death. Qin Yu coughed. Daoist Wang's face darkened. "Brat, consider it carefully. It is impossible for me to give you a chance again and again." What was this? Was this a threat? Everyone fainted. For better or worse, you should at least maintain your status. How could you not care about face just to take in a disciple? Qin Yu cupped his hands together. This junior cannot agree. Daoist Wang was flustered and exasperated. He stomped his feet and pointed a finger at Qin Yu's nose, cursing at him. Stubborn and inflexible. Young and ignorant. Wasting his talent and being struck by lightning. Destroying his own future. How lamentable. Qin Yu pinched his nose and accepted it. He could see that while Daoist Wang was angry, he didn't have any ill intentions towards him. After a long time, Daoist Wang came to a stop, panting for breath. He lifted a hand and pointed at Qin Yu. "If there comes a day that you regret it, my doors will always be open to you." This was a complete reversal of the situation. The disciples of Immortal Eclipse Valley began to cry. "Martial Uncle Wang, just what sort of status do you have? How could you not have any moral integrity and not give up? Just look at us, just look at us." As he watched his old friend leave, Eclipse Axion could see the helplessness in his back. His complexion was ice cold. "Qin Yu, don't regret your choice today." He flicked his sleeves and left. Under countless shocked, puzzled, and mocking gazes, Qin Yu bitterly smiled and left. Qi Jiao wanted to chase after him and say something, but she was tightly held back by her senior apprentice sister. This Qin Yu, if he could even refuse the temptation of Daoist Wang taking him as a disciple, then he was absolutely aiming for the Radiant Redwood. She couldn't stare on helplessly as her junior apprentice sister jumped into a pit of fire. Double monthly votes. If you think this chapter is wonderful, then please support it. You can also vote for a monthly vote. 100 crosstalk coins for a monthly vote, 500 crosstalk coins for a monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk coins for a monthly vote, 100,000 crosstalk coins for a monthly vote. Chapter 68. The third day of the Alchemy Conference. When Qin Yu arrived at Alchemy Mountain, he received a notice from an Immortal Eclipse Valley disciple that he no longer needed to participate in today's competition. After the competition ended, he could go with the top 9 ranked disciples to the Radiant Redwood to cultivate for a month. After explaining everything, the Immortal Eclipse Valley disciple coldly looked up and down several times. Then, he snorted and turned around, showing the back of his head to Qin Yu. Now, if Immortal Eclipse Valley's disciples were to choose the most unpopular person to participate in the competition, then Qin Yu would absolutely be the champion. Luckily, he had encountered so many things along the way that he had long since become immune to them. This matter should have been Daoist Wang's idea. This person truly cherished his talent, but unfortunately, whether it was because of the Radiant Redwood or the little blue lamp that no one else could know about, Lin Ming could only choose to refuse. He felt a bit guilty in his heart. Qin Yu shook his head and drew back. Since he didn't need to participate, he was happy to be at ease. But not long after, Daoist Wang arrived. He snorted coldly, his nose not his nose, his eyes not his eyes. But if you don't want to, don't come closer. You're sitting so close, it's hard for me to pretend that I don't see you. Qin Yu rubbed his nose. He cupped his hands together and bowed. Greetings, Senior Wang. I thank Senior for looking after me. Daoist Wang coldly sneered. I wasn't the one who helped you ascend. Don't thank the wrong person. Qin Yu froze. I haven't even said what it is yet and you're admitting it without being pressed. Daoist Wang thought that he had defeated Qin Yu, so he felt a bit better and his complexion improved. He stared at the third day's match, no longer bothering with Qin Yu. On the third day of the Conference of Alchemy, it was still held on Alchemy Mountain. However, the rules were changed at the last minute. Alchemy would be held in the open space at the foot of the mountain. The 9 people who refined the most precious and highest quality elixirs won directly. A cold sweat dripped down Qin Yu's back. Luckily, he didn't need to participate in the competition. Otherwise, if he really had to compete in alchemy, he might not even be able to enter the top 10. After all, this competition involved all the young alchemists of the Southern Empire and Northern Dynasty. Hidden dragons and crouching tigers couldn't even describe a tenth of this competition. In fact, Qin Yu's cold sweat hadn't flowed in vain. There were only 84 participants on the third day, and many of them had a backup plan. Today, he no longer held back and used his full strength to refine pills. His methods could be considered incomparably exquisite. Daoist Wang curled his lips. That boy fourth from the left isn't bad. He should be a junior from the Northern Dynasty's Jiang sect. He refined a Foundation Establishment Realm soul-shrouding pill. After swallowing it, it can form a layer of protection around the soul. Looking at its quality, it should be a medium-grade one. It can even resist the divine sense strike of an early golden core. Daoist Wang curled his lips again. The girl in the 8th place from the left is refining a 9-revolution golden pill. The medicinal efficacy isn't as fierce as its name suggests, but amongst Foundation Establishment Realm pills, the difficulty is at the peak. It's rare that her technique is so skillful, and she's about to form the pill. If nothing goes wrong, she'll be in the top 10. Daoist Wang curled his lips. That boy on the back right, his aura is dark and gloomy. I don't know where this junior came from, but his alchemy skills are extremely formidable. What he is refining right now should be a rare early golden core level goo poison pill. With a Foundation Establishment cultivation base, refining a golden core stage medicinal pill, not bad at all. His curled lips weren't because he was disdainful, but because he was relaxed. He casually commented that the old Daoist was spicy and straight to the crux of the matter. It was unknown who he was speaking to, but Qin Yu could clearly hear it. He felt as if he had benefited a great deal from it. Although he found it funny, Daoist Wang's alchemy skills were truly exquisite. Qin Yu saw a familiar face. It was the one that Daoist Wang had commented on as dark and gloomy. When Qi Jiao was selling the black sword scabbard, he had appeared and competed for it with 500 spirit stones. Qin Yu never imagined that he would also be a formidable alchemist. Looking carefully, this person's alchemy techniques were strange, but he couldn't say exactly what was wrong with them. But there was one thing he could be sure of, and that was that this person wasn't someone good at alchemy. 2 hours later, the Grand Alchemy meeting ended. As Daoist Wang had said, the people he had commented on were all in the top 9. Those that stood out from the hundreds of people were naturally outstanding geniuses of the younger generation, so it was normal for them to be arrogant in their hearts. Although they didn't say anything to Qin Yu who had entered through the back door, their expressions were filled with arrogance and disdain. Eclipse Axayan had a cold and solemn expression. He said in a low voice, "The Grand Alchemy meeting has ended. Soon, there will be people leading you to where the radiant redwood is." Let me remind you all not to try any luck, otherwise you will be buried there. Don't say I didn't warn you. The eyes of the 10 people brightened. The ancient spirit plant, the radiant redwood, had a massive amount of heaven and earth origin energy that formed its own domain. A single day of cultivation here was comparable to a month outside. It was simply too impatient. Countless people cast envious gazes at them. If one had to point out the only flaw, it would be the black-robed fellow in 10th place. His performance was mediocre and he had managed to complete the test with some dog's hit luck. Yet, he was able to occupy one of the 10 spots. This was simply outrageous. Immortal Eclipse Valley's actions today are a bit unfair. Even so, the chances were given by Immortal Eclipse Valley, so taking one is justifiable. It's because of this that the crowd is so calm, otherwise the participating cultivators wouldn't have agreed. This brat called Chinyu, he really is lucky. As they discussed, although their voices weren't loud, it was clear enough in the ears of the cultivators present. Of the 9 people that won, many of them looked at Chinyu with disdain and indifference. Chinyu lowered his head as if he hadn't noticed anything. Since he had already obtained some benefits, there was no need to provoke the crowd any further. Whoosh, whoosh, 2 golden core cultivators flew over and greeted Eclipse Xayan. They seemed to have a bit of a grudge against Daoist Wang. They glanced at him and then withdrew their gazes. Follow me. With that, the 2 golden core cultivators were about to leave. Suddenly, the blue dome of heaven rumbled and roared. The winds and clouds surged, sinking into darkness. A giant pitch-black arm pressed down, black scales surging with demonic energy. 2 Immortal Eclipse Valley golden cores that were flying in the air suddenly had their cold and arrogant faces shatter. With miserable cries, they were sent flying away like broken kites. Bang! The earth trembled as 7 pillars of light soared into the sky, forming the shape of the Big Dipper. The golden 8 trigrams soared into the sky and collided with the pitch-black giant arm. The deafening sound was like the roar of thunder. Countless cultivators groaned and their faces turned pale. Those with weaker cultivations had blood seeping out of their mouths and noses. Shwa, 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 3 silhouettes appeared in the 9 heavens. Demonic chi billowed around them, and each of them exuded an earth-shattering aura that would cause one's soul to tremble. Nascent soul demonic cultivators, and 3 of them at that. Immortal Eclipse Valley has overestimated your abilities. You actually dare to block the momentum of my demonic path? Today, I will have your blood flow for 1,000 miles and not even a chicken or dog will be spared. With the support of their powerful cultivations, their voices echoed throughout Immortal Eclipse Valley. The 3 demonic path nascent souls lifted their hands and pressed downwards. The giant pitch-black arm violently erupted. The golden 8 trigrams phantom trembled. With a loud cracking sound, cracks began to appear, as if it were about to collapse. Humph! My Immortal Eclipse Valley is not a place where you can run wild. A silver-haired old man appeared. His robes fluttered in the wind and his aura could topple mountains and overturn seas. He was the powerhouse that had driven away the purple-back blue-wing ants that day. He formed a series of hand seals and a flying sword flew through the air, falling into his hand. He lifted his hand and pointed it towards the heavens. Hum, hum, a heaven-shaking sword cry reverberated through the world. Countless sword phantoms appeared, numbering in the tens of thousands. They howled through the air like a roaring sea, their momentum horrifying to the extreme. Bang! The golden 8 trigrams phantom shattered and the giant pitch-black arm came crashing down. Countless sword phantoms shot into the skies, cutting down on the giant arm. Sparks flew in all directions as the arm was trapped, unable to move. The 3 demonic path nascent souls roared out loud. Demonic energy rose up from the giant black arm and it violently swept out, smashing apart the countless sword phantoms as its momentum rose. the silver-haired old man's eyes brightened. Today, I will let you know just how deep the inheritance of my immortal Eclipse Valley has been. 5-element sword array, rise. Between the heavens and earth, the number of sword phantoms rose. White, blue, black, red, and yellow divine light burst forth, forming a giant wheel. As it spun, endless spiritual strength formed a tide. Shwa, 5-colored divine light swept past. The giant black arm froze for a moment before loudly collapsing. Puff, an arm fell off and blood rained down. It was unknown which demonic path nascent soul had their arm cut off, but they still roared out in pain. Immortal Eclipse Valley. I will return the enmity of your severed arm 10 times over. Bang, demonic energy erupted. It tore through the 5-colored divine light and tore through the skies. The silver-haired old man coldly snorted. He loosened his grip and the flying sword hurled away. The sword phantoms and 5-colored divine light that filled the skies vanished with it. Shwa, the silver-haired old man's figure vanished. In a moment, a great battle at the nascent soul level had come to an end. Daoist Wang clenched his fists, excitement and sadness in his eyes. Nascent soul realm, this was the nascent soul realm. What a pity, Eclipse Axion patted his old friend's shoulder. He stepped forwards and said, that's enough. The evil spirits have been forced back by the seniors in the valley. There is no need to worry. He waved his hand and Immortal Eclipse Valley disciples immediately rushed out to maintain order and treat the injured cultivators. In front of Alchemy Mountain, the proud victors all had dignified expressions. Although the battle at the nascent soul level had only lasted for a short period of time, it had allowed them to experience what it meant to be a true powerhouse. They were still far too far away from this level. This wasn't the first time that Qin Yu had witnessed the might of a nascent soul. But on that day, he had borrowed the power of storm flow to self-destruct and then used the blood escape art to escape. He hadn't truly fought them. Today's might, if he were to even slightly touch it, would be enough to kill him where he stood. Nascent soul. He had no idea when he would be able to reach this boundary. Taking a deep breath, Qin Yu's eyes filled with determination. In the end, he had to walk his cultivation one step at a time. There was no meaning in biting off more than he could chew. With the little blue lamp in hand, as long as he was careful and diligent in his cultivation, even though the nascent soul realm was difficult, he would still be able to step into it. Without realizing it, after experiencing this storm, Qin Yu's state of mind had become much calmer and more tenacious. The 2 golden cores had been heavily injured by the aura of the demonic path nascent souls and had been sent away to recuperate. But, Immortal Eclipse Valley had their own rules. They had said that they would be sent to where the radiant redwood was today, and even though they had just been attacked by 3 demonic path nascent souls, they didn't change their mind. Soon, a new guide arrived. They brought Qin Yu and the others to the core valley of Immortal Eclipse Valley. This caused the fear and uncertainty in the hearts of the people to rapidly stabilize. It had an extremely comforting effect. Immortal Eclipse Valley was heavily guarded and the restrictive arrays were formidable. The great 5-element sword array just now was proof. Even though there were people leading the way with jade slips, they could still feel a cold chill in certain places, making their hairs stand on end. Shwa, not too far from the core valley, a group of people landed and began to walk. Fog filled the air, making it impossible to see left and right. As they walked in, the fog tumbled and there was a faint rumbling sound. The Immortal Eclipse Valley cultivator leading the way solemnly reminded them, "Follow closely behind us and pay attention to your steps. Don't make any mistakes, otherwise it will be very troublesome." There was no need to remind them. The 10 people behind them were all cautious. Although they didn't know what was in the fog, none of them wanted to take a look. After a moment, they passed through the fog region. The cultivator leading the way let out a sigh of relief. We've arrived. Double monthly ticket. If you think this chapter is wonderful, then please support us. You can also vote for us. 100 vertical and horizontal coins to draw a monthly ticket. 500 vertical and horizontal coins. 10,000 vertical and horizontal coins. 100,000 vertical and horizontal coins to be the Alliance Master. Chapter 69. There was a narrow entrance on the mountain wall in front of him. It was extremely steep, as if it had been cut open by a sword. The greenish-black rock was exposed outside, glowing with a metallic luster. A stone tablet stood outside the entrance. It was more than 10 feet tall, and on it was written, "Forbidden Area, no trespassing." Perhaps because Immortal Eclipse Valley was confident that no one would be able to break into this place, there were no cultivators standing guard outside the valley. The guide took several steps forwards and carefully took out a jade card from his chest. As if it had sensed something, the jade tablet lit up on its own and flew out of his hand, landing at the entrance of the mountain wall. Ripples appeared in the air, gentle and light like a gentle breeze blowing through a still lake. Qin Yu's heart chilled and he froze where he was. If one were to come into contact with these ripples without any preparation, then one would probably be instantly torn into pieces and perish. The divine sense of an alchemist was stronger than that of an ordinary cultivator. At this moment, the expressions of the 9 people beside him were extremely stiff. No, there was one exception. It was the mysterious cultivator surrounded by eerie energy. He was incomparably calm, even calmer than before. The ripples dispersed. The leading cultivator turned and said, "The radiant red wood is in the valley. After entering, you cannot use your magic power without permission. Remember this." He walked in first and Qin Yu was the last to enter the narrow entrance between the mountain walls. After walking for a dozen or so meters, the view suddenly opened up. What appeared in front of them was a valley about 5 or 6 miles in size. However, at this time, no one was in the mood to observe their surroundings. Everyone's attention was attracted by an ancient tree that supported the heavens in the center of the valley. It was nearly 300 meters tall, and its trunk was so thick that it would take 7 or 8 people to wrap their arms around it. The thick roots that were exposed were like a large hand that was tightly grasping the earth. The crown of the tree covered almost half of the valley. Crimson divine light was emitted from the trunk, and leaves, filling every inch of one's line of sight. It was bright and dazzling like a ball of flames that had been burning fiercely since ancient times, causing the dark red jade-like fruits on the branches to become even more alluring. An ancient and rich aura of vicissitudes accompanied by the smell of the passage of time caused everyone to instinctively feel awe. Radiant red wood. This was radiant red wood. The leading cultivator's eyes were filled with envy. He turned around and said, "This is a rare opportunity. You must grasp it carefully and not miss it." Bang! A wild aura suddenly erupted. A figure rushed out from the crowd. With a flick of his sleeves, black blood crows rushed towards the radiant red wood like locusts. It was that person. Qin Yu was startled. The leading cultivator's complexion sank before turning into a sneer. He allowed Qin Yu to rush towards the radiant red wood without hindering him. Hum, the sound of vibrating wings filled the air. Swarms of insects flew up from the radiant red wood. Before this, they had been covered by the divine red light and couldn't be seen. These were the purple-back blue-wing ants that had eaten the 3 golden cores. After they were awakened, they were enraged to the extreme. They hurtled towards the black blood crow, tearing it apart and swallowing it whole. The person that rushed out frowned. With a loud shout, his body ignited with a blood-red light and his speed suddenly rose, avoiding the swarm of ants and crashing into the radiant redwood. A deafening explosion rang out as terrifying energy fluctuations erupted. The cultivator had actually self-destructed. The thick trunk of the radiant redwood faintly trembled. A rich red divine light surged out like water, dispersing all of the impact force. Even the explosive power of a golden core wasn't able to harm the radiant redwood in the least. The leading cultivator's complexion changed. After the purple-back blue-wing ants flew back to the radiant redwood, he said in a low voice, "You have 1 month. Once the time is up, you must leave. If you exceed the time limit, you will be attacked by the purple-back blue-wing ants. You should be well aware of what will happen to you." As he finished speaking, he turned and left. It was absolutely unusual for the radiant redwood to suffer a suicidal attack. He had to report this matter as soon as possible. The valley fell silent. Looking at the radiant redwood, several people felt a bit of lingering fear. In the blink of an eye, their companion had died without a grave. Although he had been the one to seek death on his own initiative, it still left their minds shaken. Of course, the fear they felt towards the purple-back blue-wing ants was also one of the reasons they didn't dare to move forwards. They had personally witnessed how terrifying these ancient spirit insects were. As they thought about how close they were to the radiant redwood, they couldn't help but feel their scalps tingle. "Everyone, there is no need to worry. Since Immortal Eclipse Valley arranged for us to come here, they have already made their own preparations. There is no need to worry too much." The flowing river sex Wang Zifeng slowly said. He was handsome and had an extraordinary bearing. In refining the soul-shrouding pill, he had been ranked 3rd. "That's right. A month will pass in the blink of an eye. Since you and I have come here, we can't just waste our time like this." Among the 9 people, 2 Golden Core Realm alchemists glanced at each other and then stepped forwards. They each occupied a relatively spacious area beneath the radiant redwood. As Golden Core cultivators, they naturally wouldn't lower themselves to entangle themselves with a group of juniors. Wang Zifeng turned around. "Junior apprentice Sister Xueqing, how about we go over there together?" Yun Xueqing shook her head. "I thank Senior Apprentice Brother Wang for his good intentions, but I will cultivate by myself." The 9 Revolution Golden Pill that this woman refined was ranked 7th. Although it was ranked near the back, her otherworldly beauty was enough to make her the most dazzling one. Wang Zifeng's smile didn't diminish. "That's fine too. Junior Apprentice Sister can choose first." He swept his eyes behind him and coldly said, "Everyone, the 2 seniors have already chosen. With Junior Apprentice Sister Yun, how about we choose the rest in order? Of course, someone will be last." "Good. Then we'll do as Brother Wang says." "Sure. Someone will be last." Wang Zifeng's lips curved in disdain. He found Qin Yu extremely displeasing to the eye. This was because Qin Yu had taken the back door, and also because he had once asked Daoist Wang to help him, but Qin Yu had instead refused him. Yun Xueqing glanced at Qin Yu and said, "I am indebted to fellow Taoists for allowing me to choose." "Xueqing thanks you all." Then, she floated towards the radiant redwood. Wang Zifeng landed not too far away from her. The other 5 people also quickly chose their own spots. Almost all of them were close to the radiant redwood. A certain someone quietly found a corner and closed his eyes to cultivate. As for anger or anything like that, he simply wasn't in the mood. Qin Yu closed his eyes and entered into a state of cultivation. As his cultivation method revolved, his pores opened and he began to absorb the surrounding spiritual strength. For the first time, he felt the joy of rapidly absorbing spiritual strength with his own ability. Of course, this speed was only relatively speaking. Immortal Eclipse Valley, Core Valley area. In a grand hall, 2 figures were sitting across from each other. Clouds and mist swirled around them, incomparably mystical. A disciple just came to report that a golden core snuck into Immortal Eclipse Valley and detonated themselves to attack the radiant redwood. The person on the left quietly said. He paused for a moment and then continued to say, in addition, there is something strange about fellow Daoist Zhongli controlling the 5-element sword array to repel the 3 demonic path demons. It seems they have no intention of fighting for a long time. The old man on the other side had a dark red dot between his eyebrows, as if a bloody infernal energy lingered around him. My immortal Eclipse Valley has 1,000 years of inheritance, so why would we fear some trifling evil demons? Pass down the order to strengthen the vigilance and respond to all changes. I want to see just what sort of plot these demonic path rats have up their sleeves. The person on the left thought for a moment and nodded. That's all we can do for now. Rumble, 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 with a deep rumbling sound, 9 spiritual vortexes appeared beneath the radiant red wood. The spiritual vortexes of the 2 golden core realm alchemists were the largest. But if one ignored their cultivation and purely compared the speed at which they absorbed spiritual strength, Wang Zifeng, Yun Xueqing, and another stern-faced man were the fastest. The other 3 were a bit worse, but their performance wasn't bad either. Qin Yu was a bit shabby. His vortex had only slightly condensed, he simply wasn't on the same level as the others. As several people saw this from the corner of their eyes, they couldn't help but feel a trace of contempt in their hearts. Indeed, this was someone who had entered through the back door. They had no idea just what Daoist Wang saw in him. Qin Yu had long since given up on his own talent. After feeling a bit helpless about this situation, he calmed himself down. He could sense the gazes on him, but he didn't care at all. Without accident, a month from now he would smoothly obtain the derived root system of the radiant redwood. By borrowing the power of the little blue lamp, he would soon be able to cultivate a mature radiant redwood. At that time, he would eat 1 radiant red fruit and throw it away. Today he would sleep on the tree and tomorrow he would sleep under the tree. He could use it however he wanted. Was this something you people could compare with? Time quietly passed. The radiant redwood formed its own domain and its ability to accelerate one's cultivation could be called astonishing. As time passed, more and more people made breakthroughs. Even the 2 golden core realm cultivators each rose a level. As everyone was immersed in this state, unwilling to wake up, countless compound eyes suddenly lit up on the radiant redwood. The sound of fluttering wings echoed through the valley. The 2 golden core realm alchemists angrily opened their eyes. But in the next moment, they were frightened out of their wits. The countless eyes above their heads were glaring at them. They silently calculated in their hearts and discovered that a month had already passed like this. They couldn't help but be disappointed. It's actually been a month. I didn't feel anything at all. It would be great if we could continue cultivating like this. Sighing again and again, several people stood up. From their posture, it was clear that the purple-back blue-wing ants weren't joking around. If they didn't leave in time, they really would be eaten up by them. In a month, Wang Zifeng had broken through 3 boundaries and reached perfection of foundation establishment. He was just a fine line away from reaching golden core. His figure flickered and he arrived beside Yun Xueqing. He cupped his hands across his chest and said, "Junior apprentice Sister Xueqing, congratulations." Yun Xueqing had also broken through 3 boundaries and reached the 9th level of foundation establishment. She was just a bit worse than him. With such a harvest, even someone as indifferent as Yun Xueqing couldn't help but smile. Senior apprentice Brother Wang, congratulations. Wang Zifeng's smile widened. My father has already reached an agreement with Immortal Eclipse Valley. As long as I can enter the top 10, I can cultivate here for half a year and study the Tao of Alchemy. Junior Sister Xueqing, will you stay? Yun Xueqing nodded. I will also be staying in Immortal Eclipse Valley for half a year. Wang Zifeng clapped his hands. That's great. In the future, you and I will have to help each other. The voice of an Immortal Eclipse Valley cultivator echoed out from outside the valley. A month has passed. Hurry up and come out. Wang Zifeng smiled. He lifted his hand and gestured. Junior apprentice Sister Xueqing, please. Yun Xueqing nodded. Just as she was about to step forwards, she suddenly frowned. That person, Wang Zifeng turned his head and coldly sneered. It's impossible for him not to hear the flapping of the purple-back blue-wing ants. Since he doesn't want to wake up, that's his own choice. Yun Xueqing thought for a moment and shook her head. In the end, we are still acquaintances. She loudly said, fellow Taoist Qin Yu, a month has passed. Schwa, all eyes gathered on him. Qin Yu was helpless. If they didn't leave, how would he have the chance to dig out the radiant redwood's roots and then have designs on the purple-back blue-wing ants? But Yun Xueqing had good intentions. He could only open his eyes and smile to express his gratitude before closing them again. Wang Zifeng said coldly, you don't know what's good for you. Junior apprentice Sister Xueqing, don't worry about him. Let's go. Yun Xueqing glanced at him once more. She nodded and walked out of the valley. She had already warned him, but he still didn't want to leave. That was his own choice. With 2 Golden Core Realm alchemists leading the way, the 8 of them left the range of the radiant redwood. A strength suddenly gushed out from the void, pulling them out of the valley. It was still the person who had brought them here. He swept his eyes around and frowned. How come we're missing someone? Wang Zifeng cupped his hands together. Reporting to senior apprentice brother Qi, we have already warned him but he still doesn't want to leave. We can only let him stay behind. Qi Jiang shouted out, what nonsense. He is simply seeking death. He formed a law formula with his hands and was about to forcefully pull that person out. But at this time, there was the sound of flapping wings. Even standing outside the valley, one could feel a fierce and ominous energy rushing towards them. Qi Jiang sighed and released his law formula. It's too late. The purple-back blue-wing ants had a cruel and violent temperament. After being suppressed by Immortal Eclipse Valley for a month, they had already reached their limit. Now that they had regained their freedom, they would immediately tear Qin Yu to pieces. The radiant redwood had the ability to accelerate one's cultivation. To cultivators, especially those that didn't progress too quickly, the temptation was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than drugs. Even for those from Immortal Eclipse Valley, there were many people who entered the radiant redwood to cultivate over the years. Because they weren't willing to leave in time, they were eventually swallowed up by the purple-back blue-wing ants. Qi Jiang shook his head. Let's go. This place will soon be sealed again. The group stepped into the range of the fog. The clouds surged and they vanished from sight. Hum, an invisible imprisoning strength erupted from the valley. The surrounding 10 miles were sealed away once more. Hashtag double monthly tickets have begun. I'm begging you to give me monthly tickets. Double monthly tickets. If you think this chapter is wonderful then please support me. You can also give me monthly tickets. 100 crosstalk coins to draw monthly tickets, 500 crosstalk coins, 10,000 crosstalk coins, 100,000 crosstalk coins to be the Alliance Master. Chapter 70. A month had passed. Most of the defeated cultivators and their families and friends had already left. They had already lost, and if they were to look at other people's great gains, wouldn't that be adding to their own frustrations? The overcrowded situation of Immortal Eclipse Valley eased a little. Even so, when the group flew out of the core region, there were still countless cultivators waiting with bated breath. It's senior brother Wang Xiao. Heavens! He's already at the peak of Foundation establishment. A female cultivator from the Jianglu sect screamed, her face full of surprise and admiration. Senior sister Yunqing Xue has also reached Foundation Establishment Level 9. Her aura is rippling like a mirror, which is a sign that our sex cultivation method is about to make a breakthrough. Senior Sister Yunqingxue will be able to reach the golden core within a year. The radiant redwood is truly worthy of being called an ancient spiritual plant. It actually has such an amazing effect. In just a month, they have been completely reborn. Even the auras of those two golden core seniors have become much more formidable. Sigh, I was so close to becoming one of the 10 and obtaining this natural luck. I can't accept this, I really can't accept this. Someone lamented bitterly. He was indeed just a little bit off. He was only eliminated in the first round. A cultivator sneered. At the side, the female cultivator, who had a look of worship on her face, snorted coldly when she heard this, her face full of contempt. He flew into a rage out of shame and ridiculed Immortal Eclipse Valley again and again. Immediately, obscenities flew out. If it weren't for him having misgivings about Immortal Eclipse Valley's punishment, he feared he would have already attacked. Amidst the chaos, Qi Jiao was not in the mood to watch the show. Her face was slightly pale as she looked at the group of people flying towards her, her fingers tightly intertwined. There was no Qinyu. Did something happen? Could it be that they had designs on the radiant redwood and had been discovered by Immortal Eclipse Valley? Shua, a group of people descended. The Immortal Eclipse Valley cultivators told them not to reveal any information and then left. Wang Zixiao, Yunqingxue, and the others were instantly overwhelmed by the crowd. So someone tried to destroy the radiant redwood, and it's even someone at the Golden Core realm who was hiding their cultivation. Unfortunately, even if they blew themselves up, they wouldn't be able to shake the radiant redwood in the least. No wonder only 8 out of 10 people came back. Could the other person be a helper who also wanted to destroy the radiant redwood? That's not it. A cultivator from the Flowing River sect had a look of contempt. That Qinyu who entered through the back door wasn't able to withstand the temptation of the radiant redwood. A month has passed and he still hasn't come out. By now he has been torn to pieces by the radiant redwood's guardian spirit insects, the purple-back blue-wing ants. So it's him. Serves him right. He doesn't have the qualifications. Even if he were to force his way in, he would only be throwing his life away. Qi Jiao's body shook, and her face turned pale. He held a great sun mulberry leaf in each of his hands. Under the illumination of the golden sunlight, the leaves seemed to be made of gold. The purple-back blue-wing ants were naturally violent and cruel by nature. Beads of sweat dripped down Qinyu's forehead. He restrained his aura and didn't reveal the least bit of malice. After an unknown period of time, the swarm of ants suddenly separated. An even stronger purple-back blue-wing ant with faint markings on its body flew out. It coldly glared at Qinyu. Although it was only a flying ant, it displayed its arrogance to the fullest. This was the Ant King. The purple-back blue-wing ant was different from other ant species. It didn't have a queen specifically responsible for giving birth. When a male and female pair mated, they could give birth to offspring. The strongest purple-back blue-wing ant was the Ant King of the colony. It possessed the highest authority and all purple-back blue-wing ants had to obey its will. And what was admirable was that the purple-back blue-wing ant only had a single partner in its life. After its partner died, the other one would quickly commit suicide. Even the Ant King was no exception. The Ant King flew in front of Qinyu. Its compound eyes gazed deeply at him, making him feel as if he were being seen through. After a moment of hesitation, it fell onto Qinyu's hand and began to tear at the great sun mulberry leaf. As soon as it began to eat, it couldn't stop. After eating a leaf, it flew to another hand and continued to eat. When the 2 mulberry leaves fell into its stomach, the Ant King's cicada-like wings began to shiver in excitement. It felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction and joy. Unfortunately, there were only 2 leaves. Before it could carefully taste them, it had already eaten them clean. It looked up at Chinyu and then flapped its wings, preparing to fly away. There was no longer any need to keep this stupid human around. Chinyu cursed inwardly, but he maintained his composure. He turned his hand and took out 2 more great sun mulberry leaves. The Ant King was pleasantly surprised. It lowered its head and chewed on them. Eat, eat, eat. These great sun mulberry leaves had been added to them. The more Chinyu ate, the greater his chances of success would be. To the purple-back blue-wing ants, the aura of the great sun mulberry leaves was 10 times, 100 times more enticing than drugs. Seeing the Ant King gorge itself, the ant colony began to stir. Several strong purple-back blue-wing ants began to stir. They were strong competitors of the Ant King and weren't much weaker than it. Finally, one of the competitors couldn't resist the temptation. It flapped its wings and rushed towards the Ant King to compete for the great sun mulberry leaves. This was because its instincts told it that as long as it swallowed these mulberry leaves, it had a chance of transforming into a true Ant King. The Ant King angrily screamed. It flapped its wings and flew away. In the blink of an eye, 2 strong purple-back blue-wing ants began to crazily slaughter each other. The ant colony quickly quieted down. This was a struggle for the throne, a struggle for power. Instinctive awe overwhelmed them. Puff, the Ant King bit down on its opponent's head, chewing and eating it. Its wounded body was covered in its own and its opponent's blood. It looked up and screamed, its callous eyes sweeping around. The restless competitors all lowered their heads. The ant colony once more expressed their allegiance to their king. But at this time, the blood on the Ant King's body began to wriggle like a living creature. It was like red-hot iron wires were sinking deep into its body. Chinyu rapidly formed hand seals and pointed a finger at the Ant King. It screamed in pain and glared at Chinyu with hatred in its eyes. Ah! With an angry scream, the ant colony went berserk. Countless purple-back blue-wing ants rushed forwards. In just a breath of time, they would tear Chinyu to pieces. His complexion didn't change. With a flick of his sleeves, a massive amount of great sun mulberry leaves fell to the ground. The ant colony paused for a moment. Then, their instinctive desire overwhelmed them and they crazily swallowed the mulberry leaves around them. Ah! 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 The Ant King's screams became increasingly rapid. The ant colony had no choice but to stop eating. But by the time they flew towards Chinyu once more, it was already too late. With a pitiful scream, all of the Ant King's blood drilled into its body. The hatred and ferocity in its eyes vanished, replaced by a look of submission and intimacy. The purple-back blue-wing ants that had rushed towards Chinyu with their jaws wide open froze. They looked at the human in front of them with puzzlement. They couldn't figure out why he had the aura of a king on his body. This caused them to feel awe, not daring to be the least bit presumptuous. Chinyu let out a long breath. His back was already soaked with a cold sweat. Just a little bit more and he would have been buried in the stomachs of the ants. Luckily, the ancient beast dominion arts records weren't wrong. He had fed the ant great sun mulberry leaves that had been stained with his own blood energy and then stimulated the blood of the purple-back blue-wing ants to fuse them together to form a soul seal. Once the soul seal was placed in them and their blood energy fused together, the Ant King would regard him as the closest person to them. It would follow his orders for the rest of its life and would never abandon him. And once he controlled the Ant King, he could control the entire ant colony. This was Chinyu's plan from the very start. The Ant King fell into his palm. Its body was the length of a finger and its surface was covered with a hard carapace. It was cool to the touch, like jade. Chinyu smiled. He gently stroked it with his fingers. The Ant King emitted excited cries as it twisted around in his palm. As he thought back to that day when tens of thousands of purple-back blue-wing ants had chased him down and eaten up 3 golden core masters, Chinyu smiled. He waved his hand. "Go, let me see your strength." The Ant King reared its head back and screamed. Countless purple-back blue-wing ants flew towards it like a dark cloud, destroying everything in its path. The radiant redwood was a self-proclaimed domain that could prevent anyone from approaching it. When a golden core cultivator blew themselves up, they weren't able to damage it in the least. From this, it could be seen just how powerful its defenses were. But now, Chinyu already had the best spies. This ancient spirit plant in front of him was no longer able to defend against him. The Ant King's thoughts stirred. It screeched and the swarm of purple-back blue-wing ants flew back to the radiant redwood. When they returned, they were each holding a bright red fruit that was as beautiful as a flaming gem. Chinyu sat down cross-legged. He took out a radiant red fruit and swallowed it down. The fruit melted in his mouth and the fresh and sweet taste fell into his stomach. Then, a burning heat rose up, spreading through his body. But before he could feel the pain of being burned, this burning heat dissipated into his organs, turning into pure spiritual strength that flowed into his Dantian Sea. The effects were even better than the cloud rain pill purified by the little blue lamp. Chinyu opened his eyes, a satisfied smile on his face. But he wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, he quickly walked over to the base of the radiant redwood. During the past month, he had already found the location of the radiant redwood's derived root according to the medicine codex. The Ant King led the swarm of ants over. They dug up the soil and revealed the thick root. Chinyu looked at it several times. This was it. He waved his hand. The Ant King led the swarm of ants to the root and began to tear at its surface. The purple-back blue-wing ants could even tear apart the protective magic power of a golden core cultivator. It could be seen just how powerful their destructive strength was. But even so, it was incomparably difficult to destroy the radiant redwood's root. One could even hear the sound of teeth grinding against the root. And what was strange was that whether it was the root fragments that were torn off or the root itself, not a single drop of juice flowed out. It was like a layer of camouflage. A moment later, when the swarm of ants dispersed, all that was left of the thick root was the core. It was a tender and fiery red color and had tiny root hairs. This was the true derived root of the radiant redwood. The Ant King personally moved. It followed the directions of Chinyu's divine sense and bit down on the root. Voila, the radiant redwood trembled and swayed. A rich red divine light erupted. Luckily, Chinyu was already prepared and had retreated far away. The red divine light didn't harm the purple-back blue-wing ants at all. After sweeping through them several times, it reluctantly dispersed. The Ant King flew over with the derived root in its mouth. Chinyu took out a deep green jade box and carefully placed it within. Then, he stuck a blue jade talisman on it to seal off the loss of its vitality. Only then was he truly able to relax. At this point, the main goal of his trip to Immortal Eclipse Valley had been accomplished. Chinyu smiled. Now, it was time to cultivate. The radiant redwood in Immortal Eclipse Valley had lived for countless years and the heaven and earth spiritual strength it had accumulated could be called terrifying. Even if only a small portion of it was absorbed into the radiant red fruit, it would still be a monstrous good fortune. Moreover, this place had been sealed once more and no one would come to disturb him. He naturally couldn't miss out on such a good chance to cultivate. As for how to leave, the purple-back blue-wing ants were the key to unlocking the seal. With the key in his hand, whether he stayed or left was completely up to him. Double monthly votes. If you think this chapter is wonderful, then please support me. You can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk coins to draw monthly votes, 500 crosstalk coins, 10,000 crosstalk coins, 100,000 crosstalk coins as Alliance Master. Chapter 71. Beneath the radiant redwood, Chinyu sat down cross-legged. Magic power surged within his body, rumbling like thunder. Suddenly, his eyes flashed open and a sharp light erupted from them. His robes fluttered in the wind and a powerful aura flowed out like mercury, stirring up a great deal of dust. Golden Core 2nd level. As he carefully sensed the formidable strength within his body, Chinyu revealed a smile. But soon, he sighed, a bit helpless. The radiant red fruit was indeed formidable. It contained extremely pure heaven and earth spiritual strength, allowing one to use it to cultivate at a rapid pace. The fact that he had broken through to the 2nd level of Golden Core in a month was the best proof of this. Unfortunately, the radiant red fruit also had its limits. After swallowing a large amount of it, his body's absorption rate slowed down. This wasn't because he had developed a resistance, but because his mortal body couldn't withstand the baptism of high-purity spiritual strength for too long. The reason Chinyu was able to persist for a month was because his mortal body was formidable. If it were an ordinary early Golden Core cultivator, a week would be their limit. Luckily, this sort of bodily fatigue would naturally recover after resting for a period of time. At most, it would take a month. Unfortunately, this would reduce his cultivation speed by half. Well, if other Golden Core cultivators knew what Chinyu was thinking right now, they would want to strangle him to death and curse him for being unreasonable. In the following period of time, Chinyu didn't waste any time because he stopped cultivating. The strength of the ancient beast dominion art had already been proven when he controlled the purple-back blue-wing ants. There was also the medicine codex that contained a myriad of information about alchemy. He needed to spend a great deal of time and effort to study and perceive it. Although he might not be able to use it, just a tiny bit of it might be of use in the future and he might obtain an unexpected harvest or even save his life. Of course, these were all things that would happen later. But, it was always good to have more skills. Chinyu immersed himself in the 2 vast ancient texts, chewing on them with relish. A month later, Chinyu resumed his cultivation. After being raised by the great sun mulberry, the Ant King was clearly much stronger. Its body was already larger than its competitors and its wings fluttered with energy. It was extremely close to Chinyu. After receiving its master's orders, it immediately sent out a massive number of subordinates to pick the radiant red fruits, piling them up into a small hill on the ground. Looking at the Ant King that had come up to him to ask for a reward, Chinyu smiled and took out several great sun mulberry leaves. This fellow was so excited that snot nearly popped out of its nose. It turned and glared at the pitiful eyes of its fellow tribesmen before picking them up and eating them in large bites. For the time being, he only provided the great sun mulberry to the Ant King because he needed it to control the entire ant colony. Otherwise, once the other purple-back blue-wing ants broke into the king's steppe, they would automatically separate into a new colony. At that time, it would be very troublesome. Since he had decided to attack, Chinyu didn't plan on showing any mercy. He didn't have the ability to take away the radiant redwood, but he could take away all of the purple-back blue-wing ants. With every increase in the Golden Core realm, a cultivator's strength would clearly increase. If there was a difference of more than 2 levels, the weak basically had no hope of winning. This was except for those with powerful inheritances and bloodlines. Of course, freaks like Chinyu were also an exception. All of this was to make it clear that the cultivation of the Golden Core stage was extremely difficult. Even in the relatively easy early stage of the Golden Core stage, being able to advance 1 stage in 3 years was already considered outstanding. Even with the radiant red fruits as a cheat, Chinyu had no choice but to do this 3 times in order to step into the 3rd level of the Golden Core. This had taken him nearly 5 months. With the radiant red fruits freely available on the radiant red wood at all times, Chin secretly blushed. The 2 golden cores that came with him hadn't eaten anything at all and had easily advanced in a month. In comparison, his martial talent was terrible to the point of being horrifying. If it weren't for the little blue lamp, then he would have been doomed to spend the rest of his life as a grassroot. The world was vast and full of wonders. If even a heaven-defying treasure like the little blue lamp existed, then there had to be something that could improve one's martial talent. If he had a chance in the future, he definitely had to obtain it. Everyone had the dream of being a top student in their hearts. Chin shook his head and gathered his thoughts. He had already stayed in this valley for half a year. Although no one had come to disturb him, it was inevitable that he would be discovered if he continued. To be able to break through to the 2nd level of the Golden Core realm could already be considered a considerable harvest. Knowing when to stop and withdraw was also an excellent choice. But as he looked at the tree full of radiant red fruits, he couldn't help but feel his heart ache. Everyone knew that being greedy wasn't good, but who could really decisively withdraw in front of such a temptation? There were those who were calm and decisive, but most of them were just trash-talking. Perhaps the heavens had sensed Chin-Yu's hesitation and made a choice for him. In the dusky skies above the valley, winds and clouds began to surge. An invisible pressure fell on Chin-Yu's chest like a mountain. Even with his 3rd-level golden core cultivation, his heart tightened and he found it hard to breathe. The purple-back blue-wing ants anxiously screamed. They shook their wings but didn't dare to fly out from the radiant red wood. Through the soul seal, Chin-Yu could feel the Ant King's fear. Just what had happened that could cause the purple-back blue-wing ants, who could easily kill golden cores, to be so panic-stricken? Bang! The radiant redwood shook. A rich red light erupted from every part of the tree like flames, dyeing the entire valley red. The originally warm and auspicious halo of light was now scarlet red, as if it were dripping blood, cold and harsh. On the branches, the radiant red fruits began to wither and fall to the ground. They were originally condensed from pure spiritual strength, but at this critical moment, they turned into spiritual strength to supplement themselves. In the skies, flames rose up between the winds and clouds, blazing and burning. Even from a great distance, one could still feel the terrifying heat. This was the manifestation of the radiant red wood's domain. It was unknown just what had happened, but this ancient spirit plant didn't hesitate to expand its domain to such a massive range. As if it was rejecting the arrival of some terrifying existence? As this thought appeared, Chin-Yu felt as if he had fallen into an icy lake. He couldn't imagine just what existence could make the radiant red wood so nervous. And the key point was that he was still here. What was called a fire at the city gates bringing disaster to the fish in the moat? Chin-Yu finally understood what it meant today. He had hesitated, but now he couldn't leave even if he wanted to. Chin-Yu clenched his teeth and stood up. This simple movement caused his complexion to pale. He gasped for breath and staggered towards the edge of the valley. If this existence could brazenly attack without regard for immortal Eclipse Valley, then it was clear that it was aiming for the radiant redwood. The further he went, the safer he would be. This was the only thing he could think of. As for what happened afterwards, he could only take things one step at a time. With a loud explosion, it was like the heavens were collapsing and the earth was sinking in. Chin-Yu's scalp tingled. He looked up and saw that the blazing skies were really cracking apart. The radiant redwood violently shook and countless red leaves burst apart. Its domain had been forcefully broken and it had clearly received a tremendous impact. But at this time, an even more terrifying scene appeared. From the crack in the skies, a great white bone hand stretched out. It was thousands of feet long, icy cold and crystalline like jade, and it released monstrous flames. With just a glance, Chin-Yu's mind was seized. He froze where he was. In his mind, a great hand broke through space and grasped at him. Puff, Chin Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. A stabbing pain tore through his mind like a saber was cutting into it. He staggered and his eyes filled with shock. Without pause, the great white bone hand grabbed towards the radiant red wood, as if it wanted to uproot it. Walala, the radiant redwood's branches swayed and red divine light surged outwards. But, in front of the great white bone hand, it didn't have the slightest strength to resist at all. It was easily broken apart and crushed. Just as the great white bone hand was about to grab the radiant red wood, a figure suddenly appeared. He wore a white robe and had the bearing of a transcendent immortal. Facing the monstrous white bone hand, he thrust out a finger. Like divine thunder from the highest heavens, a terrifying collision set off boundless shockwaves. Chin Yu was sent flying away, blood flowing out from his head. Countless cracks appeared on his body. If it weren't for his powerful body, he would have shattered to pieces. The great white bone hand trembled and turned into motes of crystal light that vanished. Laughter echoed out from the crack in the skies. Pill Crucible, it seems I have underestimated you. You have become even stronger these past years. The white-robed Daoist had a light expression. Demon Monarch praises me too much. The reason I was able to fight you to a draw was because I borrowed the strength of the divine wood. Ha ha ha, you are quite direct. Unfortunately, you never take a single step out of Immortal Eclipse Valley. Even if I wanted to kill you, I couldn't. Pill Crucible looked up, his eyes shining like stars. I don't know whether or not the Demon Monarch can kill me, but if you don't leave now, you won't have another chance. Rumble rumble, deep rumbling sounds rang out from all directions. Immortal Eclipse Valley's great array formation was already revolving. Once it erupted with its full strength, even a nascent soul cultivator wouldn't be able to escape. The Demon Monarch sighed. Your radiant red wood is quite good. What a pity, Schwa, a white bone hand grasped at Chin Yu. Compared to when it grabbed at the radiant red wood, it was over 100 times weaker. Even so, it was more than enough to deal with a golden core cultivator. At the very least, at this moment, Chin Yu's body stiffened as if he had been locked onto by a vicious beast. Let alone escaping, he couldn't even form a thought. Ah, the Ant King atop the radiant redwood screamed. It could feel its master in danger and recklessly flapped its wings, rushing towards the white bone hand. There seemed to be a sigh in his ears. The earth violently disintegrated and a thick root broke through the earth, colliding with the white bone hand. The root broke into countless pieces and the white bone hand was temporarily blocked. Pill Crucible had already caught up. He lightly said, "It looks like the Demon Monarch is very curious about my Immortal Eclipse Valley's great array formation. Then, don't leave." In the skies, the crack rapidly closed. The Demon Monarch sneered and his aura vanished from sight. Pill Crucible didn't underestimate Chin Yu. Once the great array formation completely revolved, he scattered the swift and fierce aura around him. His ruddy face paled a little and his wrinkles seemed to deepen. He turned to look at Chin Yu, his eyes bright and piercing. Chin Yu was dripping with sweat. He felt as if he had just left a wolf's den and entered a tiger's mouth. His mouth moved and he discovered that his throat was parched to the point where he couldn't speak a single word. Pill Crucible's complexion gradually became strange. His fingers began to move, as if he were a god on the side of the road. He glanced at Chin Yu from time to time, his eyes becoming increasingly bright. Suddenly, he sighed and said, "The will of the heavens, I have never had a true disciple in my life, but I never thought I would encounter one today. Boy, are you willing to take me as your master?" Like a bolt of lightning had struck his head, Chin Yu's entire body went numb. All the countless thoughts of begging for mercy in his mind suddenly vanished. Are you sure you didn't take the wrong script? This was a solemn, cruel, and rigorous fantasy cultivation drama, so where did this sort of brainless melodramatic plot come from? Pill Crucible blushed red as he was stared at by Qin Yu. He coughed and said, "Boy, don't let your imagination run wild. You've only seen a little of the vastness of this world. Come with me and leave this place first." As he spoke, he flicked his sleeves and the two of them vanished from sight. The Ant King was enraged. Just as it was about to chase after them, the radiant redwood erupted with a divine light that swept it back into the crown of the tree. The collapsed earth began to wriggle like a living creature. After several breaths of time, all the cracks vanished and all the broken leaves and branches were buried. The mountain valley returned to tranquility. Chapter 72. To provide you with wonderful novels to read. At this time, as Qin Yu sat in Pill Crucible's dwelling that was surrounded by lingering clouds and mist, he still didn't know who he was. But, he could tell that this person was someone with an extremely high status in Immortal Eclipse Valley. If he could directly confront the demonic Path Saint Monarch, how could he be ordinary? After such a person discovered him, he didn't interrogate him or condemn him, but instead asked him if he wanted to take him as his teacher. How could this be so strange? Qin Yu's heart was empty and he didn't feel like his feet were firmly planted on the ground. He tried several times but couldn't calm his heart. He was still panicking and the wine he drank was tasteless. He subconsciously swept his eyes around. Pill Crucible was wild and unruly, without any of the strength of character he had when he confronted the demon monarch. It was like his spine had been pulled out of him. He slumped back onto the couch, his blurred eyes sweeping over Qin Yu. "Brat, don't blame me for not reminding you. The 5-element sword array beneath your feet is in an active state. If you casually rush in, hiccup, you should be well aware of the result." Qin Yu lowered his head and gulped down more wine, no longer looking at the beautiful clouds and scenery. What happened to the most basic trust between people? This was too excessive. He had actually disguised himself so well that he hadn't noticed anything at all. If he really wanted to escape while he was drunk, wasn't that the same as committing suicide? This was too excessive. Pill Crucible smiled in satisfaction. He patted Qin Yu's shoulder and said, "Don't be so depressed, brat. It's already not easy for you to be alive. Hurry up and take me as your teacher and everything from before will be written off. Otherwise, I will hand you over tomorrow. I believe that although my Immortal Eclipse Valley is a righteous sect, there are still many people with dark and eccentric habits. For instance, that crazy old man from the Crimson Furnace likes to throw people in to raise the temperature of the furnace. Of course, he won't let you go in and die. He will burn for 8 or 9 days until all the fat in your flesh, blood, organs, and marrow is completely burned away. Only then will he give you a quick death. Really, you definitely won't like that taste. So, hurry up and make the right decision." Qin Yu's lips twitched. To threaten someone in such a superficial manner, there really wasn't any artistic content at all. To think that he had worshipped you a little at first. Pill Crucible curled his lips. "Don't worship me. It's because there are too many people who worship me that I am forced to live in such a place. Every time I go out, I have to look like an idiot. How could that be as comfortable as I am now?" Qin Yu's eyes widened. Pill Crucible laughed. "Are you afraid now? Let me tell you, brat, this old man has cultivated the mind-reading technique. You can't hide any of your schemes from me." Qin Yu composed himself. If Senior really could read minds, then when the demon monarch tried to capture me, he wouldn't have needed the divine tree to save me. Pill Crucible choked on his wine and coughed for a long time, his face flushing red. "Little children, why are you thinking so much? It's disrespectful to expose the old, don't you understand?" Qin Yu laid down the wine jar and stood up to bow. Qin, you must first thank Senior for saving my life. However, Senior, please tell me, why do you want to take me as your disciple? It's not that I don't know what's good for me, it's just that the world is too sinister and full of traps. I'm a shallow disciple, and I'm afraid I'll be consigned to eternal damnation in the future. Pill Crucible glanced at him. Then do you know that I can make you fall beyond redemption right now? Qin Yu's expression didn't change. If Senior wished, I would have already died countless times over. Pill Crucible laughed and scolded, you little brat, do you think you have nothing to fear? He furrowed his eyebrows and fell into deep thought. In truth, I can't say why I wanted to take you in as my disciple. It's just that when I first laid eyes on you, I couldn't suppress this thought any longer. In divination techniques, in the Southern Empire and Northern Dynasty, if I said I was second, no one would dare to say they were first. You and I do indeed share a master and disciple fate. Qin Yu hesitated. Aren't your words a bit too mysterious? It's like those fortune tellers on the streets trying to trick people, right? Pill Crucible curled his lips. I never thought that a brat like you would have such sharp eyes. You actually saw through me. I came from a fortune teller background, not bad, not bad. Alright, I've said what I needed to say. Now, you can decide. Qin Yu knelt down. He didn't think there was anything to be ashamed of. In the face of life or death, what harm was there in kneeling? Moreover, he was facing a great bodhisattva that he couldn't see through no matter what. Perhaps this kneeling would be another lucky chance and good fortune. At this time, Pill Crucible cried out in alarm. His eyes rolled back as if he had been struck by lightning. He flicked his sleeves and looked Qin Yu up and down. Brat, just who are you and why would you have such a reaction to my status jade slip? Status jade slip? Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. He found this a bit hard to believe. After thinking for a moment, he took out a storage bag from his chest and took out a jade slip. Before he could speak, it was snatched away by Pill Crucible. Pill Crucible looked over it and formed several law formulas. The jade slip began to glow with blue light, condensing into the shape of a furnace. Pill Crucible was stunned. Qin Yu blinked his eyes and finally grasped a bit of his train of thought. This jade slip was one of Tsang Mangzi's relics that he had obtained from the underground space beneath the Eastern Mountain Sex Pill Disposal Department. Could it be related to Immortal Eclipse Valley? Heavens! Earth! Unfair! How unfair! Pill Crucible suddenly erupted, a crazed expression on his face. How many years has it been? I've finally found a boy that's pleasing to the eye. Just as I was about to pass down my legacy to him, someone actually beat me to it. If it was anyone else who dared to do this, I would have made him unable to take care of himself for the rest of his life. But why did it have to be that damn teacher whom I have never met before? My life, why is it so bitter? Please drag out this sentence and say it like an opera. Qin Yu's complexion paled. As he looked at Pill Crucible's enraged appearance, he really feared that if Pill Crucible went berserk, he would implicate him and cause him to lose his life. Whoosh, whoosh, several figures tore through the air as if they were facing a great enemy, and their auras were extremely fierce. Pill Crucible stomped his feet and cursed, "Why did you all run over here? Who dares to kill me while I hide here? Get out, all of you." The several Immortal Eclipse Valley powerhouses stiffened. They swept their eyes over Qin Yu and fell silent. Then, they curled up their bodies and really did roll away, vanishing into the lingering fog. Qin Yu, after cursing and venting his anger, Pill Crucible's complexion was still pale. He retracted the aura he released and returned the jade slip to Qin Yu. His lips twitched and he squeezed out a smile. "Little junior apprentice brother, this is the first time we've met. I apologize for my lack of manners." Qin Yu's eyes rolled back in his head. Although he was a bit prepared, he still felt that this matter was even more unreliable. Pill Crucible coughed and took out another jade slip. Junior apprentice brother, there is no need to doubt me. This identity jade slip was passed down to me many years ago by some, senior before he died. There is an inheritance within that helped me reach my current status. Junior apprentice brother and I are both disciples of teacher, so we should call each other brothers. Qin Yu hurriedly cupped his hands together. This junior doesn't dare. Pill Crucible waved his hand. What do you mean you don't dare? You are my junior apprentice brother, so you are my junior apprentice brother. From today onwards, this will not change. Alright, you rest here. I will make some arrangements. Tomorrow, I will hold a grand ceremony to prove your name. From now on, you will be my Immortal Eclipse Valley's junior uncle. Whoosh, Pill Crucible flew out from the courtyard. Sure enough, the moment he stepped out, the laziness around him vanished. His back straightened and his robes fluttered in the wind, making him seem dignified to the extreme. Qin Yu opened his mouth, but in the end, he bitterly smiled. Just what was going on? The next day, the core region of Immortal Eclipse Valley was under martial law. All direct descendants of the Eclipse family and official disciples of the valley received orders to gather at the Pill Hall's Grand Square. This square was 10 miles wide and completely paved with white jade. It undoubtedly displayed the heroic spirit of Immortal Eclipse Valley. Normally, it was rarely opened, it would only be used when there was a major event. Today, it was clear that a major event had occurred. Yesterday, the demonic path Saint Monarch invaded my Immortal Eclipse Valley and was forced back by the High Ancestor. Such rampant behavior cannot be allowed to be forgotten like this. The demonic path is too arrogant. Do they think that my Immortal Eclipse Valley is the same as the other sects of the Southern Empire and Northern Dynasty, that they can do whatever they want? We will not let this matter rest. That's right. This time, we will let the demonic path know that my Immortal Eclipse Valley is not something they can easily provoke. With such momentum today, the High Ancestor must be enraged. He will surely make a big move. You and I have cultivated for so long and now we finally have the chance to display our skills. How wonderful! Ha 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 ha. This old lady's saber is already thirsting for blood. Several high-spirited Immortal Eclipse Valley disciples glanced at a short and ugly man who was holding a saber and wildly laughing. Their lips twitched and they turned their heads far away. Soon, everyone gathered in the grand square. Rumble rumble, the doors to the Pill Hall opened and the 8 great elders of Immortal Eclipse Valley rushed out. Their faces were tense and pale. The grand square suddenly fell silent. Countless Eclipse family juniors and cultivators of the valley felt their hearts chill. The lords of the valley were truly enraged. Good, 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 good. Demonic path thieves, your good days have come to an end. As everyone's killing intent rose, the atmosphere in the square suddenly turned somber. It was like a giant hand piercing through the clouds. Immortal Eclipse Valley's Great Array formation felt the rising momentum of the disciples and quietly began to revolve. With a loud rumble, heaven and earth's spiritual strength surged. Thunderclaps filled the air, the momentum astonishing to the extreme. The 8 elders frowned as they saw this. The Clear Sky Furnace's first seat coldly shouted, "All of you restrain your aura. Do you want to tear apart our old bones?" Schwa, everyone was stunned and dumbfounded. The situation didn't seem right. The Sea Forge Furnace's first seat Fan Jianghai coughed. Senior apprentice brother Su, the old ancestor is still here. How about I announce this instead? Suku coldly snorted and lowered his head, no longer speaking. Fan Jianghai took a deep breath and said, "Pass down the old ancestor's decree." Walala, everyone knelt down in the grand square. Yesterday the demonic path attacked, but it was actually a blessing in disguise. The old ancestor has been reunited with his lost junior apprentice brother. From today on, he is my immortal Eclipse Valley's junior uncle and his seniority is equal to the old ancestor. No disciple may offend him, otherwise the valley rules will not tolerate it. Everyone's eyes and jaws fell to the ground. Old ancestor's junior apprentice brother. Junior uncle. Where did he pop out from? Their thoughts raced. They already knew why the 8 elders had such gloomy expressions. As first seats, it had been extremely difficult for them to reach where they were today. Just as they were about to reach the peak, they were only below the old ancestor. Then, some inexplicable junior uncle suddenly jumped out and suppressed them. How could they be willing to accept this? Moreover, they were talking about junior uncle. No one knew just how young he was. If he was a 10 to 20-year-old baby, then that would be a big joke. Thinking of this, the 100 to 200-year-old core cultivators of Immortal Eclipse Valley all had ugly complexions. Everyone left as quickly as they came. After the announcement was made, they were immediately dismissed. The 8 elders all had gloomy expressions as they returned to their respective stations. From start to finish, Chinyu didn't show himself. This was the result of his strong request, and in addition to the opposition of the 8 elders, Pill Crucible finally agreed. Even so, the name of junior uncle spread throughout the entire Immortal Eclipse Valley in just an hour. Chapter 73. Speaking of the net, to provide you with wonderful novels to read. He had somehow become the junior uncle of Immortal Eclipse Valley, the leading great sect of the Southern Empire and Northern Dynasty. His seniority was so high that it was terrifying. He looked down at his apprentice nephews and grand disciples. This plot was simply too ridiculous. But after sleeping for a night, he opened his eyes, closed them, and opened them again. After repeating this several times, he finally sighed. This really wasn't a dream. Junior granduncle, are you awake? A soft voice sounded out from outside the door. Chinyu opened the door. 6 Immortal Eclipse Valley female cultivators stood to his left and right with blushing faces. They each held an inner robe, outer robe, boots, accessories, towels, and other items. They lowered their heads and bowed. Disciple greets junior granduncle. You are. Disciple has received orders to help junior granduncle bathe and change clothes. The female cultivator on the left blushed red. Hot soup has been prepared. Please follow us. Chinyu was frightened. Just what was this old fellow Pill Crucible doing? He waved his hand again and again. No need, no need. I can bathe myself. You may leave. The female cultivator was stumped. This, Chinyu said, I will explain. You don't need to worry. The female cultivator revealed a happy expression. Thank you, junior granduncle. Disciple Kaiyue and Mingxia will serve you from now on. If there is anything you need, please feel free to ask. Chinyu frowned, not saying anything. He would have to find Pill Crucible to resolve this matter. After setting down the hot soup and clothes, he waved his hand and had them leave. A moment later, he washed up and changed into a new set of clothes. Then, he pushed open the door and walked out. Kaiyue, Mingxia, and the other female disciples' eyes brightened. Chinyu wasn't an extremely handsome person, but after cultivating the demon body, his mortal body had adjusted itself to become more angular. In addition to the existence of the little blue lamp, he had a deep background and every movement he made was filled with an imposing aura. Of course, this was also closely related to the clothes that Immortal Eclipse Valley had prepared. The black robes were embroidered with silver threads. The craftsmanship and embroidery were second to none. It was absolutely tailored and accentuated Qin Yu's aura. As the saying went, clothes made the man and horses made the saddle. In addition, there was a white jade crown on his head, a roaming dragon pendant at his waist, and rock boots on his feet. Not only were they luxurious and noble, they were also extraordinary treasures. With this set of clothes, even if he stood still, he would be able to block the attacks of 2 or 3 golden core cultivators. The roaming dragon pendant on his waist could even block an attack from a nascent soul cultivator. "Where is senior brother?" Caillou said respectfully, reporting to little Marshall granduncle. "Old ancestor has already been waiting for a long time. Please follow disciple." Stepping out of the rear residence and passing through a long winding corridor, the garden that entered her eyes was incomparably elegant. Clouds and mist lingering around it added to the tranquility. Pil Crucible sat in the seat of honor in the main hall, drinking tea with a light expression. As he heard the sound of footsteps, he faintly smiled. "Junior apprentice brother, did you sleep well last night?" Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "Greetings, senior apprentice brother. I have rested well. In addition, I have to thank senior brother for giving me all these treasures." Without further words, Caillou bowed and withdrew. Pil Crucible immediately lost his composure and slumped backwards. "Junior apprentice brother, I see that this girl still has her primordial yin. Do you have some hidden trouble that's hard to say? Don't be afraid, just tell senior brother. This old man will refine a furnace of pills for you. I guarantee that after you take it, you will be full of energy. Night time, cough cough, it's not a problem." Looking at the old fellow winking at him, Qin Yu's eyes twitched. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm in good health, so there's no need for senior apprentice brother to worry about me. Caillou, Mingxia, and the others are all disciples of the valley. It's better to let them leave and cultivate properly." Pil Crucible bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. He had a face that said, "Junior apprentice brother, just admit it. I won't laugh at you. But please, why are your eyes so wretched?" Seeing Qin Yu's complexion darken, he coughed and said, Good, your body is fine. That should be fine. Caillou and Mingxia will stay to serve you. Don't worry, they are willing. You don't have to worry about seniority in the future. You and I, as cultivators, should act with a clear conscience. You don't have to worry about trivial matters. Blinking his eyes, he said, as the saying goes, flowers that can be plucked must be plucked in the end. Don't wait until there are no flowers but only branches. Junior brother, don't waste your good time. Qin Yu accepted his fate. He cupped his hands together and bowed, "I will follow senior apprentice brother's teachings." Pil Crucible had a teachable expression on his face. He stood up and walked out. "Come, I will bring you to the hidden treasure pavilion. You can choose something from there as a greeting gift from your senior apprentice brother." Qin Yu's eyes lit up. Immortal Eclipse Valley's hidden treasure pavilion was inevitably extraordinary. After leaving the main hall, Pil Crucible flicked his sleeves. He could hear the howling of wind and clouds in his ears. When his vision was restored once more, he found himself in front of a simple wooden building. Although the stairs were in good condition, the wood had been battered by wind and rain, leaving behind countless mottled traces of time. Pil Crucible held his hands behind his back and earnestly said, "Qin Yu, even if you are my junior apprentice brother, you can only choose one item. I don't know when you will be able to enter again. So, for the next 2 hours, it is best if you look around before you make your decision. Once you have confirmed your choice, you can mark your divine sense. Go." Qin Yu's heart warmed. This cheap senior apprentice brother that had come from nowhere was actually very good to him. Of course, he wouldn't do anything for him just because of this. There were far too many schemes in this world. Even a loving couple could fall out overnight. It was best to be cautious in everything. Qin Yu respectfully bowed and turned to walk towards the wooden building. The wooden stairs creaked, but it didn't fall into his ears at all. Rather, it calmed his mind. He didn't worry that Pill Crucible would have any ill intentions towards him. This was because with his cultivation, there was no need for him to go through so much trouble. There was no lock on the door. Qin Yu reached out a hand and pushed it. A suction force followed and his field of vision darkened. When it lit up again, he was already standing in the wooden building. Behind him was the door. It wasn't locked, but in his eyes, it represented some inconceivable strength. Without permission, he feared that anyone who touched this door would never appear again. There was no gorgeous scenery within the wooden building, nor was there any frightening array formations. There were several rows of wooden shelves casually placed around them, and they didn't seem to be organized at all. Spiritual strength bubbles wrapped around items, imprisoning them on the wooden shelves. Beside them were jade slips. Qin Yu looked at the first axe-shaped treasure that entered his eyes. He picked up the jade slip and probed it with his divine sense. Indeed, there was some simple information about this treasure inside. Heaven-splitting axe. Although there is a great disparity between it and the real thing, its offensive power is still outstanding. It is suitable for disciples that walk the path of great offense and defense. Note, this treasure has certain requirements in terms of mortal body strength. And what was amazing was that there was also a mark at the back of the information. The dark-faced large man grasped the heaven-splitting axe and chopped out, severing the river in front of him. Its might was astonishing. This imitation heaven-splitting axe could be considered a top-grade magic tool amongst Golden Core realm magic tools in terms of striking power. As he swept his eyes over the long wooden shelves and the spiritual strength bubbles that covered them, Qin Yu sighed inwardly. Immortal Eclipse Valley was truly rich to the point of overflowing with wealth. He laid down the jade slip and looked further in. The treasures on the wooden shelves should have been arranged according to category. What he saw were offensive magic tools, and several of them were extremely powerful. However, Qin Yu wasn't too tempted. He was strong enough, and as long as he didn't provoke a nascent soul cultivator, he could freely roam the Southern Empire and Northern Dynasty. These treasures could at most be considered icing on the cake. He quickened his pace. On the second wooden shelf, there were layers upon layers of defensive magic tools. Although the quality was good, Pil Ding had already given him many of them and none of them were too outstanding. Qin Yu paid attention to a few and temporarily skipped over them. Following that, there was a wide variety of treasures, all of them strange and bizarre. There were all sorts of treasures that one hadn't heard of before, but there were none that didn't exist. This fully demonstrated the deep background of Immortal Eclipse Valley. 8 Treasure Horn Lamp. Take a wisp of the soul and pour it into it, ignite it and place it on an altar. If one perished, there was a chance that they could use this lamp to condense a remnant soul. For a cultivator, as long as their soul wasn't extinguished, they wouldn't truly die. Seizing the body of another was the best option, and refining a puppet body was also an option. In the worst-case scenario, they could still transform into a ghost cultivator and continue living. No one would complain about having too many life-saving treasures. This treasure could be considered precious. Crimson Refined 9-level pagoda. Each level of the pagoda had a beast soul sealed within it. If an energy refining cultivator filled the first level, they could summon a first-level energy refining beast soul. If they filled the second level, they could summon a second-level energy refining beast soul. The highest 9 levels could summon 9 beast souls to battle. Foundation Establishment cultivators were the same. Golden Core cultivators were the same. Energy Refining and Foundation Establishment cultivators were fine, but Golden Core Realm Beast Souls were much fiercer. If one could summon 9 beast souls, they could easily destroy anyone under the nascent soul realm. Flowing light pagoda cover was a secret treasure of the Buddhist sect. When one cultivated, it could calm the mind and prevent distracting thoughts from the outside world, greatly increasing one's cultivation speed. And more importantly, this pagoda cover could be used all year round. Once one reached a state where their thoughts were connected, they could fuse it into their body and be protected from all evil. Crimson fire glass bead, a treasure condensed in the depths of a 1,000-mile volcano, the 1,000 threads were constantly formed, and after refining it with a drop of blood, both parties formed a contract to live and die together. The withered 9 nether lotus could greatly increase the strength of one's soul. The treasures in this wooden pagoda were accumulated by Immortal Eclipse Valley over countless years. Each one could be called incomparably precious. For Pill Crucible to allow him to choose any one of them was already extremely generous. But, which one should he choose? Qin Yu looked around, falling into a dilemma. Outside the wooden pagoda, Pill Crucible was fuming with anger. But, the 16 to 17-year-old girl in front of him didn't seem to care at all. Her indifferent tone didn't change at all. Pill Crucible, even if you are the master of Immortal Eclipse Valley, you still don't have the authority to casually bestow treasures to others. As someone with the highest authority, if you know your mistakes, how can you convince your disciples? Pill Crucible clenched his teeth. I'm right here, so why don't you find me? Who isn't convinced? The young girl glanced at him. Relying on your status and cultivation to suppress the different voices in the valley, that is even more foolish. Pill Crucible disdainfully said, I am foolish. I can do whatever I want. The young girl lightly said, at the next grand meeting in the valley, I will announce this matter to the public. Without evidence, who would believe you? I have already left behind a recording of today's events. Pill Crucible's face stiffened. His expression suddenly changed. Spirity, you see, I only have a single junior apprentice brother. As the dignified master of a valley, if I don't have a decent greeting gift, then that would be far too shameful. Just this once, I guarantee that just this once. Can you make an exception for me? The young girl tilted her head and looked at him. She stretched out 5 fingers. Pill Crucible had a bitter expression. He pinched his nose and said, all right, I will give you the spirit stones later. Shwa, the young girl turned and walked away. After several steps, she scattered into countless motes of light. Pill Crucible revealed a complex look. He shook his head and composed himself. Looking at the tightly shut wooden pagoda door, he was also curious as to which item Qin Yu would take. At almost the same time, Qin Yu stopped. He lowered his head with surprise and bewilderment as he looked at a gray mushroom-shaped object on the wooden frame. This is, Qin Yu's eyes widened. He sniffed the scent of the mushroom and then carefully traced the lines of the wooden frame. His eyes slowly brightened. He took out a storage bag. His sleeves flashed and the medicine codex jade slip appeared. His divine sense quickly entered it and he soon found the information he needed. #######, I'm late. Sorry. It's only for the next 2 days. Steamed Bun had set a time for the daily update so that everyone wouldn't have to wait too long. Chapter 74. In ancient times, there was a spiritual tree that could give birth to a soul due to fate. When the tree died, its soul would not be extinguished, circulating between the soul marks. Every 100 years, it could give birth to a soul mushroom, which would wither in 7 days. However, if there was a soul mushroom that was over 100 years old, it could become a supreme treasure of heaven and earth. After swallowing it, one could obtain the attribute of the spirit wood soul, and from then on, the soul would never dissipate. If it was over 1,000 years old, the soul mushroom would become a treasure of the heavens and earth. Once it was refined into the body, it would become an ancient and famous treasure, the companion's soul. It was rumored that in ancient times, there was a ferocious beast named Chi. It had a ruthless nature and caused hundreds of millions of massacres, causing human powerhouses to take action to suppress it. In this battle, the sun and moon lost their radiance, and heaven and earth collapsed. The strength of the vicious beast was beyond imagination. 72 human warriors fell, and they used their blood essence to activate a secret technique to kill it. The source of its extraordinary power was the partner's soul. After this battle, the world was thrown into an uproar, and all types of information related to the partner's soul were revealed for the first time. A partner's soul could be considered a soul avatar. It was nearly the same as the soul of the main body. It could automatically absorb spiritual energy from the heavens and earth and transform it into a steady stream of energy for the main soul to grow. It was a true soul cultivation accelerator, but its effects weren't limited to just this. The strength of a partner's soul could superimpose with the main soul, doubling the cultivation of a cultivator's soul. Moreover, in a life or death situation, the partner's soul could destroy the main soul in order to avoid a life or death calamity. For example, the most terrifying soul-burying tribulation lightning was the nascent soul tribulation. With a companion soul, even if he couldn't block it, he could still pass through it unscathed. Moreover, this was only the information that was currently known about companion souls. Even now, no one knew how powerful they were. Ever since the emergence of the savage beasts, records of partner souls were rarely seen in ancient books. After the baptism of time, there were very few who knew of this treasure. The Medicine Codex had records regarding the soul mushroom as well as information about the partner soul. Qin Yu had studied it in detail during his time cultivating beneath the radiant redwood, so he knew about it. Soul mark, soul mushroom, and companion soul. If it were someone else, even if he knew about the companion soul, he could only give up with a bitter smile. But Qin Yu was different. He had the little blue lamp that could accelerate the growth of spirit plants. No matter how mysterious the soul mushroom was, it still belonged to the category of spirit plants, and the little blue lamp had never disappointed him. He took out a storage bag and took out a jade hoe. He carefully cut down the soul mushroom from the wooden frame and placed it in a jade bottle that he had prepared earlier. He stuck on a talisman that sealed away the dissipation of his vitality and turned to leave. Although the Medicine Codex stated that the soul mushroom could survive for a day after leaving the tree, he didn't want to take such a risk. However, after taking a few steps, he realized that it was still early before nightfall. No matter how anxious he was, he could only continue waiting. Too much concern leads to chaos, and one's temperament still needs to be tempered. Taking a deep breath, Qin Yu took the jade bottle and walked to the exit of the wooden building. He reached out a hand and pushed it open. Then, he was outside the building. Pill Crucible's eyes brightened. He smiled and said, "Junior apprentice brother, let me see just what treasure you took. Let me tell you in advance, you must think about it carefully. If you rush to choose the items in front, I'm afraid you'll be distressed for a while." The old man winked, but as soon as he looked at it, a strange expression appeared on his face. What is this? Why haven't I seen it before?" Qin Yu cupped his hands across his chest. "Senior apprentice brother, I obtained this from the last wooden shelf. If I'm not mistaken, it should be the legendary soul mushroom." As he spoke, he glanced over. Pill Crucible's mouth fell open. He mumbled, yes. Calculating the time, the soul mushroom should have been born during this period of time. He suddenly slapped his forehead. "What are you doing with it?" "It's useless." Qin Yu smiled. "The soul mushroom is incomparably mystical and I only inadvertently learned about it. Since I saw it today, there's no reason for me to miss it. Since senior apprentice brother wants me to choose a treasure from the wooden building, then choosing the soul mushroom shouldn't be a violation of the rules. I hope that senior apprentice brother can agree. Pill Crucible waved his hands again and again. How can that be? I want to give you a formidable treasure, not something so useless. Hurry up and go back and choose something else. The figure of a young girl suddenly appeared. She lightly said, Pill Crucible, don't push your luck. Qin Yu's eyebrows arched up. In Immortal Eclipse Valley, there was actually someone who dared to speak to his cheap senior apprentice brother like this. Pill Crucible coughed. Spirity, you also saw that stupid boy Qin Yu took a useless soul mushroom. Let him go back in and choose again. An hour, no, a quarter hour is fine. I guarantee that I won't bother you again in the future. The young girl shook her head. No. Pill Crucible clenched his teeth. Add 30% more spirit stones. No. 50%. No. Double. Pill Crucible's face twitched. Spirity, I only have a single junior apprentice brother. If others were to find out that I took the soul mushroom as a greeting gift, I wouldn't be able to bear the shame. The young girl had an indifferent expression. Even if it was 10 times, I still wouldn't agree. Allowing him to enter the wooden building is already a violation of the valley's rules. It is impossible to do it a second time. She paused for a moment and then swept her eyes over. Moreover, in a sense, the soul mushroom is more precious than all the treasures in the wooden building. For him to choose such a treasure, it can only be said that his vision is unique. Pill Crucible's old face fell and his expression became extremely long. Qin Yu was filled with curiosity. Although he hadn't known this cheap senior apprentice brother for long, he knew that he was someone who cared about face and was normally dignified in front of others. But in front of this young girl, he didn't pretend at all and seemed very relaxed. His thoughts raced. He cupped his hands together and said, Senior apprentice brother, what this young girl said is correct. The soul mushroom is my choice and I am satisfied with it. It was only at this time that the young girl truly looked at Qin Yu. But, her indifferent eyes seemed to sweep over a stone or a tree. Pill Crucible wanted to say something more, but the young girl suddenly said, it is impossible for him to enter the wooden building again. But, if you want to compensate him, there is an ownerless treasure outside the wooden building. If he can refine it, his benefits will be endless. Pill Crucible's complexion turned ugly. The 8th furnace. That's right. The young girl took out a round token. If you agree, then take this token. I can make an exception and give him a chance to refine the 8th furnace. Qin Yu said, Senior apprentice brother, there is no need to say anything more. Pill Crucible sighed. Just don't regret it in the future. He took the token and wrapped up Qin Yu with his sleeves. The two of them vanished from sight. The young girl watched as the two left. After a long time, she frowned. The soul mushroom, Shua, she scattered into motes of light. Junior apprentice brother, what do you want me to say? Pill Crucible's face was filled with helplessness. You actually wasted such a good chance. Qin Yu smiled. To be able to see the soul mushroom and obtain it is already an extremely rare event, so how could it be considered a waste? Senior apprentice brother, there is no need to take it to heart. Pill Crucible coldly coughed. What does it matter if I take it to heart or not? Since things have come to this, there is nothing else I can do. Whatever, come with me. He muttered, although the chance is pitifully small, I've already given you the token. For better or for worse, I might as well give it a try. Shua, the two figures appeared in a pavilion. Fire energy floated in the air and a light medicinal fragrance lingered around. Qin Yu wasn't unfamiliar with this scene, it was caused by alchemy. The guard cultivator hurriedly bowed. Greetings, old ancestor. His eyes fell on Chinyu. After a moment of hesitation, he said, Greetings, junior granduncle. Pill Crucible had an indifferent expression. His eyes were filled with the demeanor of a great expert. Eclipse Yen hurried over. He bowed towards the two. No matter what he was thinking, he didn't reveal anything on his face. Old ancestor and junior uncle, what instructions do you have for me? Pill Crucible cursed inwardly. He had been so depressed just now that he had forgotten about Eclipse Yen. His thoughts raced and he placed the token in Chinyu's hand. I suddenly remembered that there are some matters I need to deal with. Let Eclipse Yen lead you to what you need to do. I will be leaving first. Schwa, as soon as he said he left, he vanished from sight. Chinyu looked at the token in his hand. As he felt Eclipse Yan's gloomy eyes, he understood why his cheap senior apprentice brother had run away faster than a rabbit. He shook his head and said, Forget it. I never had any intention of refining the 8th furnace to begin with. Have someone send me away. Eclipse Yen straightened his body, his expression indifferent. Junior uncle, you speak too seriously. The old ancestor must have placed great hopes on you. The master of the 8th furnace has been vacant for many years, so how could I dare to obstruct you? Junior uncle, please follow me. He turned and sneered. What sort of character was the old ancestor? How could he not understand the gravity of the situation? This lowly person must have used his status to forcefully request this, so the old ancestor had no choice but to agree. The old ancestor finding an excuse to leave just now was the best proof of this. But now, he was still trying to play this sanctimonious game of cat and mouse. This was simply laughable. No one knew that Eclipse Yen, who hadn't made any progress this entire time, had finally made a breakthrough after nearly 100 years of hard work. Perhaps because he had sincerely moved the heavens above, he had finally made a breakthrough. The 8th furnace had nearly been refined to this point. He had hidden this news so that he could amaze the world with a single feat. Once he finished refining it, he would announce it to the public. But, since Chinyu wanted to refine the 8th furnace, then he would give him this chance. With the 8th furnace's strength, if he refined it after it had initially recognized him as its master, there would be a 100% chance of a backlash. By the time he reached the Foundation establishment realm, he would have at least 7 or 8 layers of skin peeled off. Eclipse Yen had long since grown impatient with this so-called junior uncle. Moreover, Chinyu had dared to try and seize the 8th furnace and destroy the foundation he had established in Immortal Eclipse Valley. How could he let go of a chance to humiliate him? He hurried along. As for the news that junior granduncle had arrived and wanted to seize the 8th furnace, it was quickly spread through the 8th furnace station through the mouths of several guard disciples. Moreover, it spread at an even faster speed. Countless eyes fell on Chinyu's body, filled with ridicule and contempt. What sort of treasure was the 8th furnace? Even with his late golden core cultivation, his teacher hadn't been able to refine it in 100 years. Moreover, in these 100 years, over a dozen stunning geniuses had attempted to refine it, but all of them had ended in failure. For a mere foundation establishment cultivator to have such ambitions, it was simply laughable. There were even some 8th furnace direct disciples that knew of Eclipse Yan's initial attempt to refine the 8th furnace. They didn't bother to conceal the sneer on their faces, waiting for this junior granduncle to make a fool of himself. Eclipse Yen stopped. He coldly said, "Junior uncle, we've arrived." In front of them was a 10,000-foot mountain. The mountain was crimson and barren, and it emitted a steaming heat. Waves of heat constantly surged in the air. Without even approaching, one could tell just how terrifyingly high the temperature was. At the base of the mountain, there was a 10-foot circular stone door. The temperature here was even more astonishing. The air was so hot that it distorted one's vision. The 8th furnace is called the 9 Earths. It is located deep underground in magma. After Junior Uncle pushes open the door, you will naturally be able to see it. Eclipse Yan's lips curved up. We will wait here for Junior Uncle to return. Qin Yu was well aware of the hostility that Eclipse Yan and the Eighth Furnace disciples held towards him. He felt helpless in his heart. Ever since he became Immortal Eclipse Valley's junior uncle, things seemed to have spiraled out of his control. He looked at the crimson 1,000-foot mountain and then stepped forwards. For many years, Immortal Eclipse Valley hadn't been able to find a new master of the Eighth Furnace. He was well aware of his own limits. Disregarding the little blue lamp, his alchemy skills could only barely be considered passable, so how could he subdue such a great treasure? He would just treat it as a formality. Chapter 75. He stood firm and pushed open the stone door. Waves of heat surged outwards. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. Under the mocking gazes of many people, he stepped into the Crimson Mountain. The temperature inside the mountain was even more terrifying. Under the scorching heat, the stone walls glowed red. Without the protection of Transcendence energy, one would be cooked in a short while. The slanted tunnel extended into the ground, but it didn't take long for it to reach the end. At the end was a cave that was hundreds of feet wide, and there was a round well on the ground. The well was unfathomably deep, and a scarlet light flickered in and out of it. Even though he was several meters away, he could still feel the terrifying heat contained within. Obviously, this was a test. If he didn't have the courage to jump, then he naturally wouldn't be able to refine the Eighth Furnace. Qin Yu hesitated for a moment and then turned to leave. It wasn't that he was afraid of this deep well, but that he didn't want to waste time. The soul mushroom was still in the storage pouch, and most of his thoughts were on it. Little Martial Uncle, why are you leaving? Jump down and you will see the Eighth Furnace. If you come out now, I fear that the disciples will laugh at you. Eclipse Yan's light voice echoed in the stone chamber. Qin Yu's footsteps paused. His eyes turned cold. Whether I stay or leave, I have my own plans. Eclipse Yan coldly sneered, Junior Apprentice Uncle's status is exalted, so I don't dare to stop him. But this matter was personally ordered by the old ancestor. Zhao Yan will definitely obey and won't dare to disobey in the slightest. So, Martial Uncle, please make a trip. Qin Yu was silent for several breaths of time. Then, he faintly smiled. That's fine. Then let's give it a try. He turned around, walked to the well, and jumped in. Outside the 1,000-foot peak, Zhao Yan's face sank as he sneered. He didn't even have this bit of shrewdness and couldn't stand being provoked at all. He actually dared to have ideas about the Eighth Furnace, he simply didn't know how to live or die. The juniors of the Eclipse clan said in a low voice, Great Uncle, his position is revered and he is also the old ancestor's junior brother. If something goes wrong, I'm afraid it will be hard to explain. Eclipse Yan waved his hand, it's fine. Since the old ancestor left him here, it meant that he had the intention to punish him, but it was not convenient for him to say it out loud. Let him suffer a bit and then I will rescue him. This time, I will make sure that he loses all face so that he won't dare to take a single step into my Eighth Furnace station ever again. The Eclipse clan juniors began to flatter, Great Uncle is wise. Waves of heat rushed towards him. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes, far calmer than when he was outside. The demon body was powerful. Not only was it indestructible, but it also had a strong resistance to extreme environments. Although the temperature here was high, it was only a bit warmer to Qin Yu. He revolved his magic power a bit and there wasn't a single trace of sweat on his forehead. Bang! As his feet landed on the ground, Qin Yu swept his eyes around, taking in his surroundings. At this moment, he was standing on a large black stone in the magma. This stone had obviously been refined with magic power and was supported by a formation. It sat in the magma lake and remained motionless no matter how turbulent the torrents were. Besides this great stone, there was nothing in sight. The 8th furnace that had been sealed beneath the 9th earth had disappeared without a trace. Qin Yu frowned. He swept his eyes around and soon discovered something strange in the lake of magma. The magma was always in a flowing state, but a few thousand feet away, there was a strange calm. Moreover, the magma there was clearly much dimmer than its surroundings, as if a massive amount of heat had been sucked away. Suddenly, it seemed as if some titanic being had awoken beneath the magma lake. Its body stirred up terrifying waves, causing the roiling magma to roar as if it wanted to swallow the great stone. Bang! The giant furnace broke through the magma, billowing flames wrapping around it. It released a blinding divine light, making it impossible to see its true appearance. But without a doubt, this was the 8th furnace. The changes in the magma lake had been triggered by it. Qin Yu instantly understood that the 8th furnace was the same as the black sword in his hand. Both of them had developed their own spiritual sense, and after sensing his arrival, they took the initiative to attack him. No wonder Eclipse Yan's complexion had been so ugly when he learned he had come to refine the 8th furnace. Who would be willing to give up such a precious treasure? Even if it was just a single glance, he might still be unwilling. Magma surged up. The black stone overflowed, nearly touching Qin Yu's body. The already terrifying temperature began to rise at an alarming rate. Qin Yu dripped with sweat, drenching his robes. But his expression remained calm. The 8th furnace seemed to discover that it couldn't scare him at all. It gradually restrained its strength and quietly floated in the air. That posture, no matter how one looked at it, seemed to be saying, "Come on, come on, come on." Qin Yu's complexion was strange. If a pill furnace could actually express such a feeling, then the boundless universe was truly full of wonders. Sadly, he had no way of taming it. Or else with this cauldron in his hand, his alchemy path would be like adding wings to a tiger. As if sensing Qin Yu's thoughts, the storage bag suddenly emitted an indignant cry. Without his permission, the fleeting flame furnace flew out on its own. Whoosh, straight towards the 8th furnace. Qin Yu was shocked. But what happened next caused his eyes to widen. It was with great difficulty that his jaw nearly fell to the ground. The moment the incomparably massive and arrogant 8th furnace saw the fleeting flame furnace, its body violently trembled as if it were suffering from epilepsy. Then, it threw itself against the fleeting flame furnace. Bang! A mass of flames blasted the 8th furnace away, but in the blink of an eye it flew back. Bang! Bang! The fleeting flame furnace attacked again and again, but the 8th furnace seemed to be addicted. Not only did it not counterattack in anger, but it hummed with excitement. No matter how one listened to it, it sounded like a rutting ram, unable to conceal the restlessness in its heart. Qin Yu blinked his eyes. He suddenly felt that this world was far too unfathomable. Alchemy furnaces were actually divided into male and female. Otherwise, what would the 8th furnace be doing? Was it like attracting like? Qin Yu shuddered. He felt that his outlook on life was too dark, too dirty. Finally, the fleeting flame furnace turned around arrogantly, looking down at Qin Yu from above. It had an expression that said, "Open your eyes and see who is the fiercest here." The 8th furnace had shrunk to half the size of the fleeting flame furnace. It bowed and bowed in all sorts of flattering ways. Occasionally it would turn to Qin Yu and spit out flames, causing the magma lake to tumble about, as if saying that if you dare to provoke my goddess, you brat will die. But who would have thought that the fleeting flame furnace wouldn't appreciate it at all? It slapped it away, but in the blink of an eye, the 8th furnace flew back, its face filled with satisfaction as if it were immersed in happiness. Qin Yu's eyes brightened and a faint smile appeared on his lips. The eighth furnace that was filled with love suddenly shivered, feeling as if something wasn't right. Outside the 10,000-foot mountain, Eclipse Yan's complexion paled. He could feel the abnormality in the eighth furnace, and he had never seen such intense mood fluctuations before. Damn, just what methods did Qin Yu have that he could stir up the eighth furnace? Luckily, he had already completed the initial refinement, otherwise he really might have been able to smoothly refine the eighth furnace. Although he felt a little more at ease, Eclipse Yan's complexion became increasingly ugly. He felt as if his 100 years of hard work couldn't compare to someone else's in a single day. Towards Qin Yu, he increasingly disliked him. Humph. Refine it, refine it. Once you begin, you will discover that the eighth furnace has already chosen a master. Its strength will be something to be enjoyed. Suddenly, the 10,000-foot mountain began to gently tremble. The ground shook along with it. Eclipse Yan's complexion changed. His eyes widened, filled with disbelief. He roared out in his heart. What a good Qin Yu, you actually refined it. Moreover, you clearly aroused the approval of the eighth furnace, thus causing such a phenomenon. Damn it, just where did your luck come from? You managed to obtain the approval of the eighth furnace the first time. The Eclipse clan junior stuttered, Great uncle, what is going on? Eclipse Yan paled. Don't worry, he can't overturn the heavens. The 10,000-foot mountain began to shake more and more intensely. The red mountain rock began to rise in temperature, gradually releasing a red light. The Eclipse clan juniors gulped. Great uncle, the 10,000-foot mountain is shining. Eclipse Yan clenched his jaws. He can't overturn the heavens. Atop the 10,000-foot mountain, massive runes appeared. They didn't attach to the mountain, but directly fused into the mountain rock, becoming one with the entire 10,000-foot mountain. The Eclipse clan juniors were stunned. Great uncle, the mountain stabilizing runes have appeared. Eclipse Yan roared, he can't overturn the heavens. Puffed, he spat out a mouthful of blood. As it fell to the ground, it was evaporated into nothingness by the high temperatures. Eclipse Yan was like he had been struck by lightning. His face paled and his eyes turned blood red. He was like a vicious beast that was about to devour its prey. His connection with the eighth furnace had been severed. It hadn't been destroyed, but had been cut off by the eighth furnace on its own initiative. Impossible, this was absolutely impossible. It was Qin Yu, it had to be Qin Yu. He must have used some sinister method to deceive the eighth furnace and tempt it to dissolve their relationship. Otherwise, the eighth furnace had already acknowledged him and completed the initial refinement, so how could it possibly betray him? In the history of Immortal Eclipse Valley, this sort of matter had never occurred before. It was Qin Yu. Eclipse Yan gasped for breath. His aura crazily erupted. He was impressively an 8th-level Golden Core Master. The terrifying pressure caused the surrounding disciples to draw back in panic. Bang! The ground shook and shattered. Eclipse Yan rushed out. He wanted to enter the 10,000-foot mountain and expose Qin Yu's true identity. He wanted to tell the 8th furnace just who its true master was. With a loud explosion, Eclipse Yan was sent flying backwards. A powerful collision of strength tore apart his hair and ripped apart his robes. Blood flowed from his head, leaving him in a distressed state. He was stunned like a wooden chicken. The grief and indignation in his heart were like 100,000 volcanoes, one that not even the waters of the mountains and rivers could extinguish. His 8th furnace, the 8th furnace that he had guarded for 100 years, the 8th furnace that he was just about to successfully refine, had actually abandoned him. Whoosh, whoosh, with the sound of breaking air, several figures hauled forwards. The 3rd Furnace Master Eclipse Axayan, the 4th Furnace Master Eclipse Yu, the 5th Furnace Master Eclipse Shuji, the 6th Furnace Master Eclipse Wu, and the 7th Furnace Master Eclipse Ming. In Immortal Eclipse Valley, the Eclipse clan's 5 furnace masters had gathered together. As they looked at the dazed and bleeding Eclipse Yen, their faces were filled with shock. They were all furnace masters, so how could they not know what this represented? Eclipse Yan's 100 years of hard work had been destroyed today. Eclipse Shuji saw her big brother's miserable appearance. She screamed out, "Big brother, what happened? Why did the 8th furnace sever its relationship with you?" Eclipse Yen whispered, "Chinyu, it was Chinyu." His eyes rapidly turned red, filled with hatred and brutality. He used an evil technique to deceive the 8th furnace. Eclipse Shuji clenched her teeth. "Big brother, rest assured that I will seek justice for you." Eclipse Axion frowned. He said in a low voice, "This matter hasn't been clearly investigated and it also involves Junior Uncle. Be careful what you say." Eclipse Yen roared out, "I have already started refining the 8th furnace. In another month or so I will be able to completely refine it. Now, the 8th furnace has severed its relationship with me. Eclipse Axion, tell me, if Chinyu didn't use an evil technique, then what was it?" The complexions of the 5 furnace masters changed. The initial refinement represented that the 8th furnace had approved of Eclipse Yen. For a top-level treasure like the 9 great furnaces, this sort of approval would never be changed unless the master died. Could Chinyu have really used an evil technique? Hashtag. This is the last half day of double time. Brothers, please reward me with monthly tickets. Chapter 76. Immortal Eclipse Valley's 8 great furnaces were the treasures of the Eclipse clan's ancestors. Up until now, the first and second strongest furnaces had long since fallen into the hands of outsiders. If the Eclipse clan juniors were inferior, then there was nothing they could say. But, if someone were to use evil techniques or schemes to steal their furnace treasures, then they absolutely would not be tolerated by the Eclipse clan disciples. Zhao Yen, we will investigate this matter thoroughly and give you an explanation. The disciples of the Zhao clan will follow the teachings of our ancestors. But if someone tries to scheme against us, don't blame us for being ruthless. I must get to the bottom of this matter regarding the 8th furnace. Eclipse Shuji's face was ice cold. Elder brother, please calm your anger for now. Little sister and several other brothers are here. We won't let you fall into the trap of this despicable person. So what if he was a respected senior? I won't let this matter rest even if it reaches the old ancestor. Eclipse Xion's expression darkened. Just as he was about to say something, the 10,000-foot mountain suddenly quieted down and the burning aura rapidly dissipated. At the base of the mountain, a stone door quietly opened and Chinyu stepped out. Eclipse Yen roared, "Give me back my 8th furnace." Bang! His golden core level 8 cultivation erupted, and it was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. A dazzling light erupted and countless runes appeared. Zhao Yen was sent flying as if he had collided with a mountain. Blood spurted out from his mouth and nose. With a series of crackling sounds, the bones in his chest and abdomen were broken into several pieces. Eclipse Shuji cried out in alarm, "Big brother." She flicked her sleeves and gathered her magic power to catch Eclipse Yen. As she looked at his pitiful appearance, she trembled with anger. "Chinyu, you dare to do such a thing to my big brother? I will kill you." Zhao Axion stopped her. "Calm down, check it out first." Eclipse Shuji screamed, "My big brother is heavily injured, how can I remain calm?" Zhao Axion, move aside. Zhao Yu, Zhao Wu, and Zhao Ming also had unfriendly expressions on their faces. Chinyu's thoughts raced and he roughly guessed what was going on. His eyes turned icy cold. "Are you saying that if Zhao Yen attacks me, I can't even fight back and can only helplessly wait for death?" The faces of Zhao Yu and the other two froze. Eclipse Shuji had a venomous look in her eyes. My brother was so angry that he lost all reason for a moment. You could have just pushed him away, but there was no need to do such a cruel thing. Qin, don't try to deny it. Qin was expressionless. I didn't activate any spells, it was the 8th furnace that automatically protected its master. For Eclipse Yen to be wounded like this is the backlash force. Do you want to blame me for being too heavy-handed? Eclipse Shuzi coldly sneered. You have just refined the 8th furnace and yet you are able to understand and protect your master. We are all masters of the great furnace, how could we believe your lies? Qin Yu lifted a hand. Flames appeared in his palm, condensing into the phantom of a palm-sized furnace that emitted an aura that left one's heart racing. Eclipse Xian's complexion changed. The 8 great furnaces were like birds of a feather. He could confirm that this was the manifestation of the 8th furnace's spirit. As the master of the 3rd furnace who had controlled it for over 100 years, he could only barely accomplish this. He was far from being as relaxed as Qin Yu. The appearance of the 8th furnace's spirit proved that Qin Yu's words were true. But at this time, Eclipse Shuzi's eyes became increasingly cold and sharp. To refine the 8th furnace in less than 2 hours is already astonishing enough. Now, even the furnace spirit is so gentle and respectful towards you. Qin Yu, if you didn't use some strange evil method, how could you have accomplished this? Qin Yu glanced at her and said indifferently, how I do it is my problem. Now, get out of my way. Eclipse Shuzi clenched her teeth. Leave behind the 8th furnace, otherwise you can forget taking half a step out today. Qin Yu's eyes turned cold. If I remember correctly, I am the master of the 8th furnace and this is the station of the 8th furnace. You dare to threaten me? Eclipse Shuzi sneered. She pointed a finger into the skies. Bang! In the distance at the station of the 5th furnace, blazing flames shot into the skies, condensing into a fire snake that tore through the skies and circled around the 8th furnace. It roared and its eyes were cold and gloomy. We are all furnace masters, the power of the great furnace is not unique to you. Eclipse Shuzi turned and screamed. My Eclipse Clan juniors are being bullied and you still want to stand idly by. Eclipse Yu, Eclipse Wu, and Eclipse Ming glanced at each other and stepped forwards. Bang, 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 flames shot into the skies from the 4th, 6th, and 7th furnaces, forming into the shapes of wolves, leopards, and tigers that reared their heads back and roared. The power of the 4 great furnaces erupted and the temperature between the heavens and earth rapidly rose. Countless cultivators in Immortal Eclipse Valley widened their eyes, shock on their faces. Qin Yu narrowed his eyes. Without waiting for them to speak, the spirit of the 8th furnace in his palm seemed to be provoked. It emitted a loud cry, like the roar of a vicious beast. Poof! The skies above the 8th furnace station instantly turned into a sea of fire. Waves of fire billowed outwards, and a giant fire alligator revealed its fangs as it roared. It was 1 against 4, and he had the home advantage. His momentum was ferocious, and he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Stop! Amidst the angry roars, 3 figures arrived at lightning speed. Suku's face darkened. What are you doing? Are you going to betray your master and destroy your ancestors? He took a deep breath and bowed. Greetings, junior martial uncle. Fan Jianghai sighed softly as helplessness flashed in his eyes. Daoist Wang slapped his forehead. Su Ao, are you here to mediate or add oil to the fire? Zhao Shuzi and the others had ugly expressions on their faces. Eclipse Yu's eyes were cold. Senior apprentice brother Su didn't ask for the reason, yet you want to reprimand us. Daoist Wang hurriedly said, old Su cares about seniority the most. Zhao Yu, your words are meaningless. In the end, Qin Yu is this old man's junior apprentice brother. If things get out of hand, do you think you'll be any better off? His status was different and he had a different relationship with Immortal Eclipse Valley, so he always spoke casually. Eclipse Yu's complexion changed. He coldly snorted and didn't speak further. Zhao Shuzi bitterly glared at him. Just as she was about to say something, she was interrupted by Daoist Wang. Zhao Shuzi, just how old are you? Why are you still so hot-tempered? How come you haven't made any progress at all? Eclipse Axion, just stand there in a daze. There are many cultivators from all over living in the valley right now. You're just making a joke of yourself. Eclipse Axion frowned. He cupped his hands across his chest. Senior Apprentice Brother Su, Senior Apprentice Brother Fan, you came just in time. Then, he explained the general situation. Su Ao and Fan Zhonghai were startled. They glanced at Qin Yu, their expressions dignified. If this matter was really as Zhao Shuzi said, then it would be troublesome. Humph. Senior Apprentice Brother Su respects Senior Apprentice Brothers and respects the rules. Then, I'll have to trouble Senior Apprentice Brother to investigate this matter and return justice to my brother. Zhao Shuzi sneered. Su Ao frowned. Then, he composed himself. Junior Apprentice Sister, don't worry. The matter of the furnace recognizing a master is no trifling matter. I will investigate it myself. He turned and respectfully bowed. Junior Martial Uncle, this matter concerns Eclipse Yan's entire life and even his future destiny. I ask that you give me an explanation. His words were sincere, neither servile or overbearing. The Eclipse Clan Junior's complexions brightened a little. Qin Yu said, Today, I originally had no intention of refining the 8th furnace and I also wanted to withdraw midway. But Eclipse Yan refused and used Senior Apprentice Brother's orders as an excuse to prevent me from withdrawing midway. Thinking about it, he thinks that the magma lake is infinitely powerful, so he wants me to suffer a bit. Eclipse Yan's hateful face stiffened. As everyone saw this, they all sighed inwardly. This Eclipse Yan, he had brought this upon himself. Didn't you all want to know how I subdued the 8th furnace? In truth, I also think it's wonderful. Take a look for yourselves. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and the fleeting flame furnace howled out, flames lingering in the wind. In the sea of flames in the skies, the fire alligator swept its tail. Ignoring the 4 fire spirits, it rushed towards the fleeting flame furnace. Bang! With a dull thumping sound, under countless stunned gazes, the fire alligator was sent flying away. But this fellow that had always been arrogant and cruel was actually in a good mood. Not only did it not become angry, but it even turned its head and wagged its tail as it approached. This appearance caused everyone to think of a single word: it was in heat. The Eclipse Clan powerhouses were left dumbfounded. Even Su Ao and Eclipse Axion, who had always been known for their restraint, looked as if they had seen a ghost. As for Daoist Wang, who was known as an experienced and knowledgeable old man, he didn't seem to notice anything at all. This was seduction. The 8 great furnaces were the inheritances of the Eclipse Clan's ancestors. The Eclipse Clan juniors that had always held the 8 great furnaces in incomparable reverence suddenly felt their hearts collapse. How could the supreme treasures passed down by their ancestors be like this? Qin Yu waved his hand and took back the fleeting flame furnace. The fire alligator was enraged. It opened its mouth and roared, its appearance fierce and fierce. No one doubted that this fellow had really been betrayed because of a woman, no, a female furnace. It simply didn't respect Qin Yu at all. Qin Yu lightly said, If you roar at me again, don't ever think of seeing it again. The fire alligator was convinced. It immediately lowered its head and wagged its tail in a cute manner. Eclipse Yan stared at this scene. As he thought of his 100 years of painstaking refinement and the incomparable respect he felt in his heart. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Eclipse Shuzi rushed over. Big brother. Qin Yu had a light expression. This is the reason. If you didn't see it clearly, I can repeat it again. Eclipse Yu's lips twitched. His complexion was as if he had eaten a fly. He waved his hands again and again. This sort of thing that subverted their hearts once was enough. Su Ming took a deep breath. He cupped his hands across his chest. Thank you, High Master. He turned and said, Junior apprentice brothers and sisters, do you have any objections? Daoist Wang muttered, the matter is placed in front of us, so what nonsense is there to say? Eclipse Axian ruthlessly glared at him. Senior apprentice brother Su, we are already clear. He hesitated for a moment and then cupped his hands across his chest. Junior uncle, if I have offended you today, I ask that you forgive me. Eclipse Shuzi coldly snorted. She picked up the unconscious Eclipse Yen and soared into the skies. Eclipse Yu, Eclipse Wu, and Eclipse Ming followed close behind. Daoist Wang let out a long breath. It's finally been resolved. He looked at Qin Yu and said with dissatisfaction, this was clearly something that could have been easily resolved, so why did you have to be so ostentatious? It's better for the young to be a bit more low-key. Nothing good comes from being in the limelight. Qin Yu cupped his hands across his chest. I thank Senior Wang for the advice. Daoist Wang dodged. Don't mind me. You are that old freak Pill Crucible's junior apprentice brother. If I were to accept your bow then I would have been chased down by him. Humph humph, on the surface he looks dignified, but on the inside he's despicable and wretched. Do you think I don't know him? If you are willing, then you can call me old brother Wang from now on. We can talk about this alone. Eclipse Axian angrily shouted out, don't speak nonsense. The old ancestor's status isn't something you can slander. He glanced at Su Ao and Fan Zhonghai. The three of them exchanged glances, all of them able to see the helplessness in each other's hearts. The conflicts between the Eclipse clan and outsiders had been suppressed by the old ancestor. In addition to them being careful in handling matters, they had calmed down a great deal in recent years. But today, Qin Yu had taken away the eighth furnace. This peace was bound to be shattered. It was likely that a storm was about to descend upon immortal Eclipse Valley. Su Ao cupped his hands across his chest. Junior uncle, we bid our farewells. Qin Yu said, I'll have to trouble you with today's matters. Su Ao stood up. He lightly said, in all fairness, I don't like junior uncle at all. So, I hope that in the future you can resolve the matters you stirred up and not drag us down with you. Whoosh, he shot into the skies. Fan Zhonghai awkwardly smiled and followed close behind. Soon, the two of them flew out of the eighth furnace station. Fan Zhonghai frowned. Senior apprentice brother Su, you have publicly expressed your dissatisfaction with junior uncle. Could it be that you believe that he deliberately led us to interfere in today's matters? Su Ao lightly said, I'm not sure. But, junior uncle's actions today have already affected the tranquility of the valley. The only reason I spread out these words is because I hope that this storm will be reduced as much as possible. Fan Zhonghai thought for a moment and smiled. Senior apprentice brother Su is thoughtful. Chapter 77. After tearing apart all pretense of cordiality with the juniors of the Eclipse clan and failing to obtain the approval of Su Ao and Fan Zhonghai, it could be imagined that after today, Qin Yu's days wouldn't be any better. But, he remained calm, not revealing the least bit of anxiety or worry. Nor did he reveal the calmness of a lake. Whether it was confidence or shrewdness, in Daoist Wang's eyes, Qin Yu was much more pleasing to the eye. After a long time, he sighed and said, no wonder you didn't want to take me as your master. It turns out you have an even greater background. Although I am extremely confident in my alchemy skills, I still have to admit that old freak Pill Crucible's master is far superior to mine. Qin Yu cupped his hands together. This junior inadvertently obtained the inheritance and didn't receive any guidance from my master. In terms of true alchemy, Senior Wang is more than enough to teach me. Daoist Wang's eyes brightened. His complexion darkened for a long time before he suddenly clapped his hands. I certainly cannot compare to old freak Pill Crucible's master, but that old fellow Pill Crucible, besides his cultivation, I don't fear him at all. Then, he whispered, it wasn't easy for me to find a suitable one, but someone intercepted me ahead of time. If I don't do something about it, it will simply ruin my resounding reputation. Qin Yu frowned. Senior Wang. Daoist Wang coughed. He flipped his palm and his fingertips moved. A jade slip quietly fell to the ground. Then, his complexion changed. He cried out in alarm, where did the jade slip that recorded my life's alchemy experiences disappear? That was something I specially prepared for my future disciples. With this jade slip in hand, it is the same as obtaining my wholehearted guidance. Such a precious treasure cannot be left behind. Farewell, farewell, I am going to look for the jade slip. Whoosh, Daoist Wang flew away. Qin Yu was left dumbfounded. This was also possible. He rubbed his stiff face. Then, he picked up the jade slip and probed it with his divine sense. After a long time, he took back his divine sense. Qin Yu let out a long breath of relief, a look of gratitude on his face. The jade slip was recorded in great detail, it was truly the accumulation of his entire life. If he could thoroughly understand everything in the jade slip, it would be enough to allow his alchemy skills to be reborn. In the current cultivation world, sectarian bias was extremely important. If one wasn't a disciple of their sect, they could forget learning even the tiniest bit. Daoist Wang clearly knew that it was impossible for him to take him as a disciple, yet he still taught him everything he knew. Just how heavy was this favor? After putting away the jade slip, Qin Yu tidied up his clothes and bowed in the direction he left in. As night fell, a foot of sea blue light blossomed from the storage bag, enveloping the soul mushroom. And indeed, it didn't disappoint Qin Yu. After absorbing the power of the blue sea, the soul mushroom's withered state was swept away and it became full of vitality. Qin Yu smiled. He took out a new storage bag and placed the soul mushroom as well as the radiant red woods-derived root. Although it couldn't be planted into the earth for the time being, the little blue lamp could guarantee that it would be filled with vitality. In the future, once it left Immortal Eclipse Valley, it wouldn't be too late to raise it then. Pill Crucible had treated him extremely well, but the secret of the little blue lamp couldn't be known by others. After refining the 8th furnace and obtaining the approval of the furnace spirit, even if Eclipse Yen was still the 8th old Zhang in name, Qin Yu had already become the true controller of the 8th furnace station. Most of the Eclipse clan disciples had already dispersed with Eclipse Yen. As for the remaining disciples that didn't share the same surname, they were all at a loss. Qin Yu simply sent them away and entered the 10,000-foot peak once more. He entered the magma lake and obtained the approval of the 8th furnace. The terrifyingly high temperatures no longer affected him in the least. He took out the jade slip that Daoist Wang had thrown away and probed it with his divine sense. Immediately, he felt as if he had entered the endless sea of stars, his entire mind immersed within. Only when there were no trivial matters to bother him could he truly settle down and study. After an entire 10 days, Qin Yu opened his eyes. His complexion was ashen and his pupils were extremely dim, as if he had consumed too much of his mind. But deep within his eyes, there was a faint light that floated about, becoming increasingly clear. Senior Wang is truly worthy of being called an alchemy grandmaster. To me, this jade slip just happened to make up for what I lacked in theory and experience. It has consolidated my foundation and broadened my horizons, allowing my future alchemy road to become even broader. In these 10 days, I have only roughly glanced over it and memorized it. To fully master it, I will need to slowly practice alchemy. He crushed the jade slip into countless pieces. Before Daoist Wang left, he had said that he couldn't leave this behind. But this wasn't just empty words, there was a deep meaning behind it. If Qin Yu didn't even understand this, then how could he be worthy of Daoist Wang giving him his alchemy inheritance? Qin Yu closed his eyes and calmly adjusted his breathing, restoring his mind. After a day and night, he opened his eyes once more. His gaze fell onto the 8th furnace, incomparably bright. Immortal Eclipse Valley's 8 great furnaces had been passed down to this day. Naturally, they weren't just powerful pill furnaces for refining pills. What was most precious was that the 8 great furnaces came with their own inheritances. After refining them, one would have a chance to fuse a wisp of their soul into the 8th furnace's alchemy inheritance samsara and personally experience the process of the previous furnace masters learning alchemy. This was the greatest good fortune of the 8 great furnaces. Of course, opening the inheritance samsara would be an extremely heavy loss to the 8 great furnaces. The furnace spirits had their own wisdom and wouldn't easily open it. However, the 9 earth furnace had been blinded by lust. It had been bewitched by the fleeting flame furnace and had long forgotten everything else. Qin Yu threatened it and made a few more requests. The 9 earth furnace immediately knelt on the ground, howling that it had to open the inheritance samsara. If it didn't, then that was the same as looking down on it. Of course, after being without a master for 100 years, the 9 earth furnace had accumulated a great deal of strength. This was also one of the reasons it easily submitted. Qin Yu took a deep breath and said, 9 earth, let's begin. Within the lake of magma, the 9 earth furnace that was absorbing the power of fire suddenly broke through the magma. It trembled and rumbled, causing the entire lake of magma to overturn mountains and seas. A dazzling divine light gushed out from the runes on the surface of the furnace, condensing into a raging current that submerged Qin Yu's figure. This raging current didn't burn him at all. Rather, when it fell on his body, it was as if he were soaking in a hot spring. His consciousness gradually relaxed and he fell into a deep sleep. Then, Qin Yu had an incomparably long dream. In his dream, he was a young pill furnace boy. From looking after the furnace fire, to selecting medicinal materials, to alchemy, to assisting in alchemy, and then to becoming an independent furnace master. Step by step, he steadily climbed upwards until he finally became an alchemy grandmaster of his generation. Afterwards, he became a medicine garden guard. From taking care of the spirit plants, to cultivating them, and then, by a lucky chance, he coincidentally stepped onto the road of alchemy. It was only then that he discovered that what suited him the most was alchemy. Afterwards, he became a woodcutter youth. In the belly of a mountain, he inadvertently obtained a tattered beast skin book. 10 years later, he stepped onto the road of alchemy. 100 years later, his fame spread far and wide, and he died of old age at 900 years. He inherited samsara. A wisp of his soul fused into samsara, fusing into the experiences of his predecessors and walking through the endless years. This was samsara, and it was also a dream. Moreover, it was an unimaginably great stroke of good fortune. In his dream, Qin Yu walked through life after life. From weak to strong, from lowly to noble, he followed the path of alchemy left behind by his predecessors. As he walked down the road of life, he sublimated and transformed. Outside the 10,000-foot peak, the mountain stabilizing seals all appeared. They emitted 1 trillion beams of light that burned the skies red. Immortal Eclipse Valley's great array formation revolved on its own, imprisoning this boundless aura. Otherwise, everything within 1,000 miles would be affected. Even so, for a short period of time, this phenomenon attracted countless complex gazes from immortal Eclipse Valley. Envy, jealousy, awe, confusion, bewilderment, all sorts of emotions wove together. But there was only one emotion that was remorse and hatred. Eclipse Yen leaned against a soft couch, lifted up by several disciples. His eyes widened as he looked towards the station of the 8th furnace. Although he wasn't a furnace master, he had still managed to refine the 8th furnace before. He naturally knew what this scene before him represented. The 8th furnace had opened the samsara inheritance. For Qin Yu, it had opened the samsara inheritance. His mind rumbled and his head throbbed with a stabbing pain. There was only one thought in Eclipse Yan's mind: this should have been his. Qin Yu, he had taken away everything. He had become the master of the 8th furnace and obtained the samsara inheritance. A burning sensation spread through his chest. His throat seemed to be blocked by something, making it impossible for him to breathe. Eclipse Yan's chest violently heaved up and down, emitting loud gasping sounds. "Great uncle, what is it? Don't scare me." The Eclipse clan juniors cried out in alarm. Puff! A mouthful of blood sprayed all over his face. Zhao Yan fell to the ground and breathed his last. Eclipse clan 8th level golden core, anger attacking the heart, dead. After a brief silence, all the Eclipse clan disciples screamed out in panic, "Great uncle died! Great uncle died!" On this day, immortal Eclipse Valley was plunged into chaos. Eclipse Yan's death was like adding oil to the fire, causing the discontent of the Eclipse clan juniors to reach the peak. Eclipse Shuaji cried out, insisting that Qin Yu was the murderer who killed her brother. The Eclipse clan juniors were incited and swarmed towards the 8th furnace station. Pill Crucible was in seclusion and didn't come out. Su Ao and Fan Jianghai were forced to take action and forcefully suppress the Eclipse clan juniors. But this action also completely tore apart the last bit of compromise between the two sides. The conflict between the Eclipse clan juniors and disciples of other surnames raged like wildfire. Several fights broke out over the course of several days. Although no one died, one Eclipse clan junior and 2 disciples of other surnames were completely crippled, causing the conflict between both sides to intensify. Immortal Eclipse Valley was surging with undercurrents. Su Ao and Fan Jianghai were silent. Neither of them thought that the situation would deteriorate to such a degree in such a short period of time. As they thought about how they were under pressure and yet someone was comfortably in seclusion, accepting the samsara inheritance that even they envied, they could only bitterly smile. Fan Jianghai sighed. "Junior uncle has hidden himself and doesn't want to see anyone, but the 2 of us are running around like crazy. Just what is this?" Su Ao shook his head. "Not showing himself is the smartest decision he made. The Eclipse clan's anger is monstrous right now. If they really meet, there will inevitably be trouble. After some time, when the resentment in their hearts fades a little, it won't be too late to think of a way to resolve it." Fan Jianghai said, "I also know, but I'm just a bit unhappy in my heart. Even if he is junior uncle, there's no need to drag us down with him." Su Ao hesitated for a long time. This matter should only be an accident. After all, no one thought that Eclipse Yen would be so narrow-minded. Fan Jianghai bitterly smiled. "I can empathize with Eclipse Yen. He is about to finish refining it, and if he were to see the samsara inheritance again, no one would be able to bear it." Su Ao rubbed his temples. "All right, let's not talk about this anymore. Immediately pass down the order and have them suppress the disciples of other surnames. Don't clash with the Eclipse clan juniors. Perhaps once the old ancestor leaves seclusion, everything will calm down." Fan Jianghai was silent for several breaths of time. "Senior apprentice brother Su, why do you think the old ancestor would suddenly go into seclusion at this time?" Suao had a dignified expression. He said, "Junior apprentice brother Fan, this isn't something you or I need to consider." Fan Jianghai frowned. He helplessly shook his head. "All right, I will arrange it now." He stood up and hurried away. Now that Suao was alone, he finally didn't need to hold on any longer. He leaned back in his chair, his face cloudy and uncertain. If Fan Jianghai could think of this, how could he not? The old ancestor's seclusion seemed to have some hidden meaning. Could it be that the old ancestor was using this matter to deliberately warn him not to be too ambitious? After thinking for a long time, Suao took a deep breath, his expression firm. He had received the graciousness of the old ancestor, and that was why he was where he was today. Although he had extravagant hopes for the throne of Immortal Eclipse Valley, if the old ancestor didn't allow it, then he could only put it down. Currently, the most important thing was to maintain the stability of the valley. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.